Chapter 311. Lin Feng's gaze shifted from Sang Luoha to Shi Xingyun. His eyes narrowed slightly. This girl, there's something wrong with her. Her soul is very special. Lin Feng could see through Shi Xingyun's magic power, but when it came to the soul, even a primordial spirit cultivator would not be able to see through it. However, when Lin Feng looked at Shi Xingyun, he felt that her soul was a bit strange. This made Lin Feng very interested. It seems that the northern militant soul warlock might have kicked an iron plate this time. Sang Luoha slowly walked to the hidden dragon pot, but he did not enter it like Shi Xingyun. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground. Everyone looked at him curiously. They saw Sang Luoha sitting on the ground with his eyes closed. His thin face had a serene expression, as if he was asleep. What is he doing? Is he not going to enter the hidden dragon pot? Many people in the crowd had this question in their minds. Only a few people could vaguely see a faint light floating above Sang Luoha's head. It turned into a ray of light, and entered the hidden dragon pot. Zhu Yi turned to Lin Feng and asked, "Master, is that Sang Luoha's soul? But how could it be like this?" When a cultivator's soul leaves their body, the stronger their cultivation, the more tenacious their soul would be. Their appearance after leaving their body would also be clearer. When a Yuanying stage cultivator's soul leaves their body, it would be no different from a real person in the eyes of others. Golden elixir period cultivators with powerful souls would also be extremely clear and agile, as if their souls had condensed into a physical form. Sang Luoha specialized in cultivating his soul, but after his soul left his body, it was like a blurry shadow under the sun, almost transparent. Lin Feng said, "This is the mystery of the Northern Militant Imperial Court's Soul Dao. Pay attention and you will all gain more." Zhu Yi, Xiao Budian and the other disciples all nodded and attentively looked at the hidden dragon pot. Inside the pot, Shi Xingyun raised his head and looked at an empty space. He smiled and said, "Sang Luo, fellow Taoist Sang Luo's soul technique has indeed been passed down from the Northern Militant Imperial Court." Sang Luoha's voice suddenly echoed out from within the dragon concealment kettle. "I've embarrassed myself in front of Princess Nebula. Please advise me." Before he could finish his sentence, Shi Xingyun's vision suddenly turned pitch black. It was as if he had fallen into an abyss, and his 6 senses were completely deprived. He couldn't think, see, hear, smell, taste, or move. She wanted to retreat, but she found that she couldn't move at all. This kind of situation where she couldn't even control her own body could easily cause fear and anxiety. However, none of the spectators could understand Shi Xingyun's feelings. Most of them could only see Shi Xingyun standing on the spot silently, like a wooden statue. Meanwhile, Sang Luoha's body was still sitting silently outside the hidden dragon pot. "It's already started?" Zhuge Fengling was confused. Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing were also frowning. Their gazes towards the hidden dragon pot were filled with doubt. The little guy slightly tilted his head and said to Zhu Yi, "Second senior brother, I could see Sang Luoha's blurry silhouette. Then, I saw a black shadow suddenly emerge from his body and pounce onto Shi Xingyun's body. After that, I couldn't see anything else." "How much could you see?" Zhu Yi stared at the light reflected from the mouth of the hidden dragon pot, and casually replied, "Not much more than you can. I can clearly see that the black shadow is a ferocious-looking man. His entire body is covered in purple tattoos. I can't see what happened after the black shadow pounced on Shi Xingyun." Lin Feng, who was at the side, said, "That's the dark prison of the night domain, one of the secret soul techniques of the Northern Militant Royal Court. It can suppress other people's souls and cut off the connection between the target's soul and physical body. It can imprison the opponent's soul in one's own technique, and deprive the opponent of their 6 senses." With Lin Feng's current cultivation base and the strength of his soul, although he could not understand the principles behind Sang Luoha's technique, he could still see the effects of the technique on Shi Xingyun's body. Comparing the characteristics of some of the famous soul techniques of the Northern Militant Royal Court, it was easy to figure out what Sang Luoha had done. Xiao Budian slightly frowned. It almost disappeared without a trace. The soul techniques of the Northern Militant Royal Court are too difficult to defend against. "It's useless against you." Lin Feng smiled faintly. "There are 2 kinds of power that can restrain soul techniques the most. One is the thunder technique. With the sound of thunder, the soul will be scattered. The brilliant thunder technique is the most harmful to a person's soul, so it can restrain soul techniques the most. Apart from the thunder technique, the opponents that soul warlocks hate the most are the martial cultivators that the Northern Militant Royal Court produces. Lin Feng patted Xiao Budian's head. Powerful martial cultivators have vigorous blood and qi, which is as hot as the sun. Their soul and physical body are closely connected, so it is difficult to shake them. They can also effectively restrain soul techniques. Out of all the disciples under his tutelage, the one who was least afraid of Sang Luaha was the little guy. Although the little guy's divine soul was weaker than Zhu Yi's, his physical strength was extremely powerful, and he could control the power of wind and thunder. Against Sang Luaha, he would only have an advantage and would not suffer any losses. Zhu Yi nodded at the side. That's right. When one is full of vigor, ghosts and gods will avoid them, and all evil will not invade them. That's true, but there are not many people who can do this. Lin Feng thought to himself. Apart from a few people, the rest of the top 16 in the Golden Elixir would have a headache facing Sang Luaha. Lin Feng swept his gaze across the crowd. At this moment, the elders of the various clans had also explained the situation to their disciples. However, in reality, most of the people were still looking at the hidden dragon pot, feeling confused. Humans were often easily afraid of the unknown. At this moment, most of the people present were looking at Sang Luaha's physical body, which was sitting quietly outside the hidden dragon pot, with a deep sense of fear in their eyes. This was a competition at the Dharma Assembly, which was why Sang Luaha was so carefree. One could imagine that in a real life and death battle, Sang Luaha would definitely hide his physical body properly, and then release his soul to fight the enemy. To most people, they would not even be able to see Sang Luaha before they had already been hit. Xiao Budian looked at the hidden dragon pot. Then how will Shi Xingyun deal with it? Before he could finish his sentence, Shi Xingyun, who was inside the hidden dragon pot, had already given him the answer. The eyes of the yellow-clothed young lady, who was originally like a clay sculpture, suddenly moved. In an instant, she regained her vitality and spiritual energy. However, there was something in her eyes that was completely different from before. The young lady murmured softly. The sound that came out of her mouth was not human language, but strange syllables that sounded like the roar of a dragon. Above her head, an illusory image of a dragon appeared. It was vivid and clear like a painting. A vast and mighty dragon's might spread out, causing people to be shocked. I see. That's why I felt that something was wrong when I looked at her soul. Lin Feng came to a realization. He shook his head and laughed. However, I never expected that this girl would fuse the soul of a primordial heavenly dragon into her own soul. Naturally, Shi Xingyun could not have fused the dragon soul on her own. She must have gotten help from the royal family of the Great Qin dynasty. The original intention of doing so was probably to help her cultivate the Dao technique of the 5 Emperors' True Dragon Secretary. However, the side effect was that it made her soul extremely powerful. At least, in the Golden Elixir period, the strength of Shi Xingyun's soul was definitely at the top. Prince Zuoxian's eyelids twitched when he saw this. He shook his head and looked at Shi Zongyue. You guys are really generous. That's the soul of a pure-blooded primordial heavenly dragon, right? Even the Taishu Temple couldn't bear to use it like this. I don't think even the crown prince of your country, Chongyun, received such treatment, right? Shi Zongyue smiled. This is the only case in the Great Qin dynasty. However, this opportunity was given to Xingyun by her elder brother. Hearing this, the expressions of all the primordial soul realm experts changed slightly, but they quickly returned to normal. Meanwhile, in the hidden dragon kettle, Shi Xingyun's dragon roar sounded incessantly. She put her palms together, and rays of faint golden white light circled around her body, turning into a roaring platinum light dragon. It was the magical power that originated from the White Dragon Imperial Scripture. Shi Xingyun's platinum light dragon's body flashed with a dazzling metallic luster. It kept jumping around, and the ear-piercing sound of electric currents could be heard. The platinum light dragon's body was actually surrounded by rolling lightning. Roar! The dragon soul phantom above Shi Xingyun's head, and the platinum light dragon in front of her let out an extremely violent roar at the same time. It sounded like the angry roar of a heavenly dragon, and also like the explosion of thunder. Wave after wave of violent sound waves shook the entire space inside the hidden dragon kettle. The originally invisible sound waves spread to the surroundings like water ripples. Soon, the air trembled, and a blurry figure was revealed. It was Sang Luaha's divine soul. Since the start of the battle, Sang Luaha's divine soul had finally been exposed to the public. Everyone could clearly see its existence with their naked eyes. The blurry figure shook violently, as if it was a porcelain vase that had been greatly shaken, and could shatter at any time. Meanwhile, Shi Xingyun's long roar sounded incessantly. It was long and melodious, as if it would never stop. Sang Luaha's divine soul held on for a moment before it suddenly flew out of the hidden dragon kettle and returned to his body. His body shook violently, and he opened his eyes, which were filled with weakness. He sighed. "I've lost." The spectators in the venue discussed animatedly. They all looked at Shi Xingyun and Sang Luaha with uncertainty. Lin Feng smiled, then turned to look at Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot, and said, "How was it?" Tiny Tot smiled. "Crouching tiger, hidden dragon." Silently, Zhu Yi said, "If it weren't for the internal strife, the overall strength of the Great Qin dynasty would not be inferior to the Great Zhou dynasty." At this moment, Shi Xingyun had already come out of the hidden dragon kettle. She cupped her hands towards Sang Luaha politely, then bowed to Shi Zongyue and Prince Shuxian before slowly walking back to the Great Qin dynasty's camp. From the beginning to the end, her expression remained calm, without the slightest hint of complacency or arrogance. Lin Feng looked at her and nodded slightly. "Let's not talk about anything else first. Just based on the strength of divine soul alone, this woman is probably the strongest among all the cultivators in the golden elixir period. A starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Moreover, the Great Qin dynasty is like a camel. It's just a little old, and there's still a long way to go before it dies." While he was deep in thought, Lin Feng suddenly sensed a reaction from one of his sound transmission crystals. What surprised him was that the person who sent the message was actually Xiao Yan, who he had not heard from for almost a month. Chapter 312. Ever since Xiao Yan left, Lin Feng had not received any news from him. However, Lin Feng was still very reassured about Xiao Yan. For such a little cow like him, it was always them who bullied others. It was definitely impossible for others to bully them. Even if they were bullied for a while, sooner or later they would be able to get back at them with interest. In the depths of Lin Feng's heart, he was even looking forward to seeing how big of a move Xiao Yan could make. If there was really any great danger, Lin Feng had left a talisman for Xiao Yan. After Xiao Yan crushed the talisman and confirmed the location, Lin Feng could directly travel through space to kill his eldest disciple. At this time, suddenly receiving Xiao Yan's sound transmission, Lin Feng was quite surprised. He crushed the sound transmission crystal and directly wrapped it with his spiritual power. Then, through the method of sound transmission, he talked to Xiao Yan on the other side of the crystal. On the surface, Lin Feng was still standing there quietly, as if he was seriously watching the new fierce battle in the hidden dragon pot. As soon as the sound transmission was connected, without waiting for Lin Feng to speak, Xiao Yan's somewhat exasperated voice came from the other side. "Master, of the 7 great true fires, apart from the Nether Evil Emperor, the True Sun Fire, and the Pure Yang True Fire, what are the others like?" Lin Feng smiled. "Why, did you encounter some kind of fire that is not weaker than your Nether Evil Emperor and the True Sun Fire?" Xiao Yan replied. "Exactly. The color of that fire is the same as the True Sun Fire. It is also golden, but it is not like the True Sun Fire, which is formed by the divine rays of the sun. Instead, it is a normal flame, and the surface of the flame is also suffused with red and blue light." Lin Feng listened to the image described by Xiao Yan, and his mind went through the characteristics of the 7 great true fires mentioned in the system, and he immediately had an idea. He suddenly remembered that when he first came to Wuzhou City, before he had the time to take Xiao Yan as his disciple, he had seen a strange golden flame flash in Xiao Zhener's eyes. Lin Feng smiled and said, So your little wife's family actually cultivates and controls the Nanmingli fire of the 7 great true fires. Nanmingli fire? Xiaoyan slowly chewed on the name. Lin Feng continued. Yes, according to your description. It is one of the 7 true fires in the world, the Nanming Ignis. The flame itself is golden in color with red and blue flames. The fire doesn't seem big, but that's because the firepower is condensed and concentrated. In fact, the flame has extremely strong destructive power and can directly burn through space. Xiaoyan snorted. So that's how it is. You almost made me suffer in silence. You fought with your father-in-law's family? Lin Feng's words were light, but his tone was actually very solemn. After reading the letter that Xiaozhen left for Xiaoyan, Lin Feng knew that Xiaoyan's trip would probably not go smoothly. If he had a conflict with Xiaozhen's family, things would become more complicated. Xiaoyan said gloomily. It's a long story. I'll tell Master the details when we return to the mountain. Lin Feng said. If the opponent's cultivation is not much stronger than yours, the best way to deal with the Nanmingli fire is to use the Nether Evil Huang. In terms of direct destructive power, the Nether Evil Huang is the leader of the 7 great true fires. Even the Nanmingli fire is no match for it. Among the 7 great true fires, the Nanmingli fire is the most suitable for refining weapons and alchemy. Although it is also very powerful when used against enemies, under the same conditions, it is no match for the Nether Evil Huang. After a moment of silence, Xiaoyan said, but the power of the Nether Evil Huang is too fierce and overbearing. If we are not careful, the situation will be difficult to deal with. I don't want to hurt Zhen'er's family. Lin Feng said lightly. Of course I understand your intention. But think about it carefully. If your father-in-law suffers a little setback, it may affect their previous decisions to a certain extent. This may not be a bad thing for them. Xiaoyan came to his senses and said with a smile, Master, you are right. I understand. Lin Feng nodded his head in satisfaction. You'll have to figure out the specifics yourself. Xiaoyan said with a smile. Don't worry, Master. Before I just couldn't figure out the other party's background. Now that I have an idea in my heart, things will be much easier to handle. I have always remembered Master's teachings. People who come out of the Xian Gate Sky sect can eat anything but not suffer a loss. Lin Feng said in his heart. Of course I don't worry about you. I still have to worry about you Hongyan and Yangqing, but you 4 little cows, I can rest assured. By the way, have you seen your little wife? After talking about business, the blood of gossip in Lin Feng's heart boiled again. On the other side, Xiaoyan's voice instantly withered, and he said with extreme depression, Not yet. Lin Feng laughed in his heart, but on the surface, he still put on a dignified look. Well, the revolution has not succeeded yet. Xiaoyan continued to work hard. There was something that Lin Feng wanted to say, but he swallowed it back. Generally speaking, it always took more effort to win over the wife of the empress. After ending the call with Xiaoyan, Lin Feng looked up at the sky and thought silently. The situation is gradually becoming chaotic. This has both advantages and disadvantages for me and Xianmen Tianzong. Whether it is good or bad, I'm afraid it still depends on the specific response when the situation comes. But it's always good to prepare for a rainy day. But how should I do it? After thinking for a long time, Lin Feng gradually had some clues in his heart. Next to him, Zhu Yi, Tiny Tot, and the others wanted to ask him several times, but they felt that Lin Feng was thinking about something, so they didn't dare to disturb him. After making up his mind, Lin Feng turned his head to look at his disciples, and asked with a smile, What's wrong? What do you want to ask me just now? After the few people looked at each other, Zhu Yi stood up and said, Master, we want to ask, what is the background of the sword Dao that Sun Moon Sword sex sword couple displayed just now? Even though Lin Feng was thinking about his own matters, with the strength of his current soul, multitasking was a small matter. Everything that happened in the Hidden Dragon Pot was similarly seen by him. While Lin Feng was talking to Xiaoyan, and then pondering alone, another 2 matches had already ended in the Hidden Dragon Pot. Coincidentally, these 2 matches both had Sun Moon Sword sex sword couples participating. The final result was 1 win and 1 loss. The first to participate was a pair of sword couples, Their opponent was the Celeritas sword sect's Tao Yaoyao. And Tao Yaoyao's partner caused the entire audience of cultivators to be in an uproar. Because Tao Yaoyao did not choose a golden elixir period sect member to fight 2 against 2 with her. Her partner was shockingly a Foundation Establishment stage Celeritas sword sect disciple. This was simply making it clear that she planned to fight 1 against 2. The sect members who participated together were completely there to make up the numbers. It was different from when Yu Hongyan brought along Zhuge Fengling. At that time Zhuge Fengling at least had the effect of confusing the opponent, while Tao Yaoyao was clearly much more domineering. The final result proved that Tao Yaoyao had the capital to be arrogant. This girl fully displayed her super popular strength, using her own strength to break down the Sun Moon Sword sect's dual sword harmony, bringing along a Foundation Establishment stage junior brother with a professional bystander label on his face to obtain victory. In this battle, Tao Yaoyao was dazzling, lighting up the entire audience. During the Celeritas sword sect's Foundation Establishment stage disciple competition before, not a single person shamefully broke into the top 8. Not a single Foundation Establishment stage disciple obtained a spot to enter the ancient desolate sea world. But in this battle, Tao Yaoyao recovered all of the face that the Celeritas sword sect lost in one go, and even had a surplus. Lin Feng glanced at the Celeritas sword sect's camp. Swordsman Flowing Light himself had a calm expression, as if he didn't care at all. But the group of Yuanying and Golden Elixir period elders of the Celeritas sword sect all had different expressions, their expressions very complicated. Insisting on bringing along a Foundation Establishment stage disciple who can only slack off, looks like it's Tao Yaoyao's own insistence. The Celeritas sword sect's internal opinion isn't unified. Lin Feng understood in his heart. Where there are people, there will be disputes, there will be distant relatives. Tao Yaoyao's performance dazzled the entire audience. The Sun Moon Sword sect that became the background naturally couldn't be happy. But fortunately, their other pair of disciples immediately powerfully defeated a pair of Hua family disciples in the following competition, successfully advancing to the top 8. And in this competition, the Sun Moon Sword sect disciples suddenly displayed a sword path that was completely different from before. The originally vast and vigorous Glory Sun Sword Dao became dim and strange, while the gloomy and cold Moonlight Sword Dao instead shone with boundless radiance. The pattern of the Glory Sun Sword Dao as the main attack and Moonlight Sword Dao as support was also completely flipped. Master, I feel that this kind of reverse Sun and Moon Sword Dao isn't just that the two sides have switched the position of main and secondary, but that the sword path itself is greatly different from before. Zhu Yi frowned slightly, saying, "It's not that tactics decide the sword path, but that the changes in the sword path cause the tactics to change accordingly." Lin Feng laughed lightly, saying, "Your feeling is correct. What that pair of sword companions used wasn't the orthodox Sun and Moon twin swords in the first place. That's a variant of the Glory Sun Sword Dao and Moonlight Sword Dao, the Eclipse Sword Art and Full Moon Divine Light Sword Art. To be precise, they're each a branch of the Glory Sun Sword Dao and Moonlight Sword Dao. Although they were born from the Sun and Moon twin swords, they have their own style and have their own mysteries." All the disciples slowly nodded. Xiao Budian said, "These two sword arts should be the sword arts that the Sun Moon Sword sect disciples cultivate after forming their gold core. No wonder Master previously said that the higher the cultivation of the sword companions, the stronger the power of the dual sword combination. The increase in cultivation allowed them to cultivate an even more powerful sword art divine ability. At the same time, it also allowed the dual sword combination to produce even more changes." Lin Feng nodded. "That's right." As he answered the questions of the disciples, he looked towards the dragon concealment pot, where a new competition had already begun. In the eyes of the crowd, this match was the most interesting, the most explosive, and the most attention-grabbing match in the round of 16. The Battle of Old Enemies, Tianqi sect's Song Qingyuan against Northern Militant Imperial Court's Do Kuan. The cultivators of Tianqi sect and Northern Militant Imperial Court also began a new round of competition. In the previous competition, Dao Yuding defeated Northern Militant Samuzalo, causing the conflict between the two sides to become even more intense. Now it had completely entered a white-hot stage. If it wasn't for the elders of both sides restraining themselves, the lower-level cultivators might have already started a group fight. Lin Feng glanced at the dragon concealment pot, and his eyes slightly lit up. Chapter 313. Lin Feng looked at the hidden dragon pot. The light at the mouth of the pot reflected everything that was happening inside the hidden dragon pot. Do Kuan was one of the younger generation of the northern militant sect, the strongest in terms of body cultivation among the disciples of the Golden Elixir period. Facing the Heavenly Pool sect disciple Song Qingyuan, who was known for his spells, he naturally had to use the most advantageous fighting method, trying to close the distance as much as possible, and then fight in close combat. So the moment Do Kuan made his move, he was like a tornado as he charged at Song Qingyuan. Do Kuan's speed was extremely fast. More than half of the spectators didn't even see his movements clearly before he had already rushed in front of Song Qingyuan. Majestic and blazing yang qi spread out, like a humanoid primordial heavenly dragon. His physical strength was extremely powerful. Song Qingyuan faced Do Kuan's approach, but he did not have the slightest intention of retreating. His hands formed a seal. Then two giant figures appeared out of nowhere in front of him. One was completely black with scarlet-red flames constantly surging out from it. When its forelimbs moved, there seemed to be a faint liquid flowing out, but it seemed incomparably viscous. Standing on the ground, it instantly burned the grass and trees under its feet into charcoal. It turned out to be a flaming giant formed from volcanic lava. Beside the flame giant was an ice giant that was shrouded in a white icy mist and emitted a threatening chill. The two giants stood in front of Song Qingyuan, letting out a soundless roar as they punched out together at Do Kuan, who was charging at them. Do Kuan was not afraid as he punched out with both fists, fighting one against two, directly colliding with the two ice and fire giants. Amidst the sound of the collision, Do Kuan stood where he was without moving while the two giants both took 3 steps back. But Do Kuan's face did not show the slightest bit of pride, instead he frowned. Ice and fire dual body? Song Qingyuan gave a faint smile. That's right, it is the dual body of ice and fire. His hands came together in a seal, and his entire temperament suddenly changed. From being gentle and polite, he became full of fighting spirit, even more ferocious and majestic than Do Kuan. The two giants, one of ice and one of fire, sandwiched Song Qingyuan between them. Then they actually fused together. The ice and fire fused together, buffing Song Qingyuan's body, causing him to instantly transform into a 3-meter-tall giant. A majestic and exuberant blood qi emanated from him. It was in no way inferior to Do Kuan's. His tall stature gave off an even greater visual pressure than Do Kuan's. Song Qingyuan, who had transformed into an ice and fire demon god, opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "Don't you northern militant cultivators always boast of your powerful bodies? Then Do Kuan, come and fight." Before he finished speaking, Song Qingyuan's enormous body that was over 10 feet tall suddenly disappeared from where he stood. The next time he appeared in everyone's line of sight, he was already in front of Do Kuan, and his fist struck down. Outside the hidden dragon pot, everyone's hearts and minds were shaken. No one expected Song Qingyuan to be so strong that he wanted to challenge Do Kuan's strongest suit. The group of Skypon sect cultivators shouted in unison. Their eldest senior brother's actions really boosted their morale. On the other side, Xianmen Tianzong and the other cultivators all had strange expressions, their gazes all landing on Xiao Budian. Lin Feng smiled. "Don't look at him. The Celestial Pool Sect's Dharma spell is different from your junior brother's Heavenly Tempest. It looks like the effect is very similar, but the principle is completely different." Xiao Budian shrugged his shoulders. "Just like Master said, my Heavenly Tempest is based on the infinite wind and thunder Dharma spell. The power of wind and thunder collides and transforms, becoming more and more powerful. The upper limit is determined by how much my body can withstand. And the Celestial Pool Sect's dual body of ice and fire Dharma spell, although it also uses magic power to strengthen one's body, the fusion of ice and fire is only mutually harmonious, that's all." Zhu Yi stared at Song Qingyuan, who was fighting evenly with Do Kuan inside the hidden dragon pot, and said, "That's true. But this Song Qingyuan definitely has other secrets on him. The little guy's expression also became a bit more serious. That's for sure. I used the power of wind and lightning on my body to transform into a ghost god's body. My physical strength is even more valiant, but my own physical strength is already very strong, so I can endure enough of the power of wind and lightning. That Song Qingyuan, with his original physical strength, wants to strengthen his body to the extent where he can challenge Do Kuan. The power of ice and fire added to his body is extremely huge. According to common sense, Song Qingyuan's physical foundation is not able to withstand such a huge power of ice and fire. Xiao Budian said decisively. He must have other hidden methods to support this Dharma spell. Otherwise, with such a powerful power of ice and fire added to his body, he would either be burnt to ashes or frozen into an ice sculpture. While the people of Xianmen Tianzong were discussing, inside the hidden dragon pot, Do Kuan and Song Qingyuan had completely fought with all their might. Since Song Qingyuan dared to challenge his strongest point, Do Kuan was naturally not afraid. Even if he used the dual ice and fire body to strengthen himself, Song Qingyuan was still not Do Kuan's opponent in terms of pure physical strength. However, Do Kuan did not dare to be careless. The Northern Martial Imperial Court and the Tianqi sect were old enemies. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years, and they knew each other very well. Do Kuan also had some understanding of the Tianqi sect's dual ice and fire body, so he had the same doubts as Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi. In view of this doubt, in order to prevent Song Qingyuan from playing any new tricks, Do Kuan decided to end the battle as soon as possible to avoid any accidents. Since you want to attack my strong points with your weak points, then I will help you. I will defeat you cleanly so that you will not have the chance to regret, and use other Dharma spells. Thinking of this, Do Kuan's attacks were like a storm as he attacked Song Qingyuan. Although his attacks were fast, they were not reckless. Instead, he integrated more changes and techniques into them. He did not just rely on his slightly superior strength to attack. Even if he used the dual ice and fire body to strengthen his physical strength to the point where he could compete with Do Kuan, Song Qingyuan did not have the ability to improve his martial arts skills and melee combat experience to the same level as Do Kuan. Therefore, Do Kuan quickly gained the upper hand and began to suppress Song Qingyuan. If he had not been on guard against Song Qingyuan's tricks, the outcome would have already been decided. Outside the hidden dragon pot, the emotions of the spectators were like riding a roller coaster. The cultivators of the Northern Martial Imperial Court ridiculed the Tianqi sect incessantly, mocking Song Qingyuan for overestimating himself. The people of the Tianqi sect were ridiculed, but they could not talk back. Each of them was so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Looking at Song Qingyuan, who was at a disadvantage in the hidden dragon pot, they could only feel anxious. After constantly wearing down Song Qingyuan's strength and expanding his own advantage, Do Kuan finally launched his final attack. His body suddenly crouched and then straightened again. Like a bolt of lightning, he leaped in front of Song Qingyuan. While Song Qingyuan was barely able to resist, Do Kuan's footsteps did not stop. He turned around and his tall body was filled with a sense of flexibility as he instantly turned behind Song Qingyuan. Do Kuan let out a sigh and slammed his elbow into Song Qingyuan's back. His strength was so strong that just the wind it created was like a sharp blade that left countless scratches on Song Qingyuan's dual ice and fire body. With this strike, even a 1,000-feet-tall mountain would be directly broken by Do Kuan. The air was constantly filled with explosive sounds as Do Kuan's elbow kept exploding. There was even a burnt smell, the smell of metal rubbing against each other. Do Kuan's elbow strike caused the entire space to tremble as if it was about to be destroyed. With his physical strength reaching this level, he had truly reached the peak of the golden elixir period. Most importantly, with Do Kuan's previous careful preparation, Song Qingyuan had already been forced into a corner with nowhere to run. He did not even have the chance to parry or defend. This was Do Kuan's true sure-kill attack. Facing this attack, Song Qingyuan's face that was a mixture of ice and fire suddenly revealed a ferocious smile. The boundless ice and fire on his body suddenly dispersed and gathered at the back of his heart, forming a vortex of ice and fire. Do Kuan's elbow smashed into the vortex, almost completely shattering it. But his expression changed greatly, because he could feel a powerful force brewing in the vortex and exploding at the same time. Outside the hidden dragon pot, Lin Feng sighed softly. Victory and defeat have bin decided. Yu Hongyan, who was watching the battle attentively, looked over. Master, that Song Qingyuan did this on purpose from the beginning? Lin Feng nodded. That's right. From the beginning, Song Qingyuan did not intend to compete with Do Kuan in terms of physical strength. Everything he did was just to prepare for this attack. Do Kuan was already cautious and patient enough, but Song Qingyuan's skill is still a level higher. Zhui frowned. In the end, I still don't know what method this person used to allow his originally weak physical body to withstand such an enormous power of ice and fire. Lin Feng looked towards Zhu Yi and the little guy, saying, this person has hidden his strength deeply, and still has other trump cards that he hasn't used yet. He will be a formidable opponent for you. Zhu Yi and the little guy nodded together. Although within the hidden dragon pot, Do Kuan had only been seriously injured by Song Qingyuan's ambush, and had not truly been defeated, everyone could see that the outcome of this battle had already been decided. Unless Song Qingyuan was careless and made an unforgivable mistake, there was no possibility of Do Kuan reversing the situation. However, this was clearly something that had an extremely slim chance of happening. The northern militant left virtuous prince's face was ashen, but his emotions were still relatively stable. He turned his head to look at the celestial pool sect's sect master, Chao Wei. The others are fine, but what's with that whirlpool of ice and fire? He had been in contact with the celestial pool sect for thousands of years. From top to bottom, from the top to the beginner techniques of the celestial pool sect, he knew them all. Chao Wei calmly said, this technique is called soul brewing by ice and fire. It is a technique created by my unworthy disciple. I would like to ask fellow Taoists to comment on it. Self-created, humph. The left virtuous prince snorted, knowing that Do Kuan's defeat was not unjust. This was the first time Song Qingyuan had used this technique in front of the world, so Do Kuan was completely unprepared. Looking at the expressions of the celestial pool sect cultivators, apart from a few people, even the Yuanying and Golden Elixir period elders had expressions of shock. They clearly didn't know that Song Qingyuan had grasped such a tyrannical technique. Even his own sect members were fooled, let alone others? After struggling to hold on for a period of time, Do Kuan finally couldn't avoid the situation of defeat. In this battle between old enemies, the victory belonged to Song Qingyuan and the celestial pool sect. Outside the hidden dragon pot, the little guy shook his head, moved his little arms and legs, and said with a smile, they've finally finished fighting, it's my turn now. Chapter 314. The second round of the competition between the Golden Core Realm cultivators of the Dharma Assembly was the top 16, and there would be a total of 8 matches. Song Qingyuan and Do Kuan's match was the 6th match, and the 7th match was the little guy's turn. His opponent, Mu Jihai, was also a cultivator of the Tianqi sect. This time, Song Qingyuan's strong comeback made the originally depressed cultivators of the Tianqi sect feel relieved. Every dog has its day, and all the anger they suffered at the northern militant imperial court was paid back this time. As for the people of the northern militant imperial court, it was their turn to be depressed. In all fairness, Du Kuan was cautious enough and was neither arrogant nor rash, but he still fell into Song Qingyuan's trap. At this moment, the northern militant left virtuous prince could only shake his head and accept his bad luck. With his cultivation, he could see through the depth of Song Qingyuan's Fali realm. But Song Qingyuan had created a technique that he had never used before. No matter how capable the left virtuous prince was, he would not know. This was different from how Lin Feng saw through Shi Shaoqian's endless transformation. Lin Feng could only see that Shi Shaoqian might have cultivated some kind of Taishu temple spell, but as for what kind, Lin Feng couldn't be sure. He could only remind Yu Hongyan to pay attention to all aspects. This was because the Taishu temple spell was completely different from Shi Shaoqian's 5 Emperor True Dragon scripture, which was why Lin Feng was able to see some clues. Song Qingyuan's ice and fire soul brewing spell was completely created from his own understanding of the northern flaming sun mystic art. It came from the same source as the Tianqi sect's spell. If he didn't hide it, even Qiao Wei might not be able to see that he knew this spell. Unless people like Lin Feng, the northern militant imperial prince, and Qiao Wei directly used their own magic power to invade Song Qingyuan's body, or even search his soul. The northern militant imperial court suffered a big setback in the Desolate Sea spell gathering this time. Although some of the Golden Elixir period disciples and Foundation establishment disciples obtained a spot to enter the ancient Desolate Sea world, none of them were able to enter the top 8 or top 4 of the Golden Elixir period. What made them even more depressed was that 2 of the battles were won by the Skypon sect. It was inevitable that the northern militant would be suppressed by the Skypon sect in this Dharma assembly. The people of the Celestial Pool sect, who had defeated their old enemy in succession, were naturally in high spirits at this moment. They all looked at Mu Jihai expectantly, hoping that he could make persistent efforts to defeat Xianmen Tianzong, who was in the limelight at this spell conference. At the same time, he could avenge the fact that he had been defeated by Xianmen Tianzong in the building foundation stage. Xiao Budian stretched his little arms and legs, and smiled towards Lin Feng. "Master, I'm going." As he spoke, he winked at Lin Feng with his left eye, revealing a sly smile. Lin Feng smiled and nodded at him. Xiao Budian turned around and walked towards the hidden dragon pot. On the other side, Mu Jihai also walked out from the Celestial Pool sect's camp. His expression was somewhat gloomy, but it was not because of the opponent in front of him, but because Song Qingyuan's performance just now had brought him a lot of pressure. He had been trying his best to catch up. He originally thought that he was finally going to catch up, but in the end, he realized that while he was running for his life, Yi Futian was actually just taking a leisurely stroll. With a slight increase in speed, Yi Futian would be left in the dust after a short jog. This kind of gloomy feeling almost made Mu Jihai go crazy. He looked at Xiao Budian with an unfriendly gaze. "I've long found you an eyesore, brat. Today I'm even more so." Xiao Budian glanced at him and suddenly said, "It's so boring to fight with you." An ominous glint flashed in Mu Jihai's eyes. Xiao Budian continued to say, "How about we make a bet? Otherwise, it'll be too boring." As Xiao Budian spoke, he flipped his palm and the Tiger Soul golden disc appeared in his palm. He smiled and said, "This is my wager. Do you dare to bet with me?" In the Desolate Sea Assembly, in principle, the two sides could only fight with their own cultivation and magical powers. If they were to use magical tools or talismans, they could not exceed the cultivator's current realm. For example, during the competition between Xiao Budian and Mu Jihai during the Golden Elixir period, the use of magical tools and purple talismans during the Yuanying period was forbidden. The Tiger Soul Golden Disc could be used, but Xiao Budian had never used it before. This was the first time many people knew that he had such an item. The roar of the demon tiger's soul essence and a powerful wave of demonic power came from the golden disc, which made Mu Jihai's eyes show a hint of desire. He snorted and said, "This is nothing. I heard that you have a Yuanying magical tool. If you lose, give me your magical tool." Xiao Budian snorted. "If I win, will you give me a Yuanying magical tool?" As soon as Mu Jihai said it, he regretted it in his heart. Although he was also in the late Jiedan stage, a talented disciple who was valued by the sect and was provided with all kinds of resources, he really didn't have a Yuanying stage magic weapon. Among the disciples of the same generation in the Golden Elixir period, only Song Qingyuan had a Yuanying magical tool. Thinking about this, Mu Jihai's mood became even worse. The way he looked at Xiao Budian also became more and more unfriendly. "I heard that in this Xianmen Tianzong, all the disciples in the Golden Elixir period have a Yuanying magical tool, and all of them are only in the early stage of the Golden Elixir period. This is ridiculous." Listening to the conversation between the two, the people watching outside the hidden dragon pot looked at Xiao Budian with envy. To have a Yuanying magical tool at the early stage of the Golden Elixir period. How lucky was this? But immediately after, many people thought that the 3 Golden Elixir period disciples under Xianmen Tianzong Linfeng, Xiao Yan, Zhui and Xiao Budian all had a Yuanying magical tool. This kind of generous treatment simply made the young disciples of every force secretly drool with envy. Mu Jihai coldly snorted and took out a brocade box. He opened the lid and revealed an ice blue crystal flower. The surface of the ice flower was jumping with a scarlet flame. This is the vermilion flame ice flower that can harmonize water and fire magical power. Mu Jihai said in a deep voice. Even if it's not ice and fire, as long as it's two opposite powers, it can be harmonized after refining this flower. He stared at Xiao Budian. Let's not talk about your yuanying magical tool. At least the value is not lower than that golden plate. Xiao Budian's eyes brightened and smiled. All right, then it's settled. I'll bet with you. Inside the hidden dragon pot, the two sides were fighting. Outside the hidden dragon pot, Lin Feng was not idle either. This time, he took the initiative to find Qiao Wei. Even the disciples of the sect are so carefree. Does sect leader Qiao dare to bet with me again? Lin Feng looked at Qiao Wei with a smile that was not a smile. Qiao Wei's expression did not change. He stared at Xiao Budian in the hidden dragon pot and slowly said, No rush. The Earth Core Fire Lotus and 9 Reincarnation Ice Orchid are already on the way. Let's settle the previous debt and gamble again. I'm not used to owing people things. Upon hearing Qiao Wei's words, the other Essence Soul Mighty figures had strange expressions. Dao Paragon of Gambling, Zhuge Guang, mumbled inwardly, it's too strange. The original winner is allowing the other party to continue gambling on credit. However, the loser would rather pay the previous bet than seek a new one to settle the old one. Zhuge Guang said in his heart, If I were Qiao Wei, I would definitely gamble. If I win, I'll settle the previous debt. Hearing Qiao Wei's refusal, Lin Feng's smile became even wider. He nodded non-committally. No problem. I'll accompany you anytime. Inside the hidden dragon pot, Mu Jihai put his palms together and pinched his hands together. White flames that were like glaciers suddenly appeared and surged towards Xiao Budian like a tide. This was the Tianqi sect's signature technique, Ice Flame. However, in the eyes of the spectators, they could not help but feel a little disappointed. As a cultivator of the Tianqi sect, Mu Jihai's opening move was not as shocking as Song Qingyuan's. Even though they knew that those who could cultivate the ice flame were the best of the Tianqi sect's descendants, those who had just witnessed Song Qingyuan's battle could not help but feel a little disappointed. In particular, Dao Yuding, who was at the foundation establishment stage, had displayed top-level techniques like the burning ice flame technique and the volcano roar. However, Xiao Budian, who was at the foundation establishment stage, would not underestimate Mu Jihai. Xiao Budian had always remembered Lin Feng's words. To deal with any enemy, one must look down on them strategically and pay attention to them tactically. Moreover, Mu Jihai, who was in front of him, had the ability to make people pay attention to him. His control of the ice flame technique was close to perfection. It was not something that Dao Yuding and Fang Zhong, who were at the foundation establishment stage, could compare to. Disregarding the difference in their levels of Fa Li, just based on their attainments in the ice flame technique alone, Dao Yuding and Mu Jihai were like children. As for Fang Zhong, he was so low that he was like an animal that had just learned how to walk. Having immersed himself in this technique for hundreds of years, Mu Jihai had naturally thoroughly understood this technique. Not to mention finding an opponent in the Golden Elixir period. Even some of the yuanying ancestors of the Tianqi sect might not surpass Mu Jihai in terms of proficiency in the ice flame technique. They might be stronger in terms of power, but their techniques might not even be comparable to Mu Jihai's. Outside the hidden dragon kettle, Song Qingyuan, who had already returned to the Tianqi sect's camp, was smiling as he watched Xiao Budian and Mu Jihai fight. He softly mumbled to himself. He should be able to force out his opponent's true strength, right? A disciple of the Tianqi sect beside him smiled and said, The disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are used to being arrogant. That's because they haven't met you, eldest senior brother. Eldest senior brother, you'll definitely be the champion in this year's spell assembly. Song Qingyuan gently waved his hand and smiled gently. It's still too early to say. Shi Xingyun from the Great Qin dynasty is not easy to deal with. Besides, I haven't seen through Shi Tianhao and Jiao Junshin from the Great Qin dynasty. I hope I can see through them in the upcoming matches. However, the others are indeed nothing to be worried about. Song Qingyuan faintly said. Although Tao Yaoyao is strong, she has a flaw in her character. She's easy to take advantage of. Gu Lei from the Purple Cloud Path is indeed not bad. Those who can enter the top 8 all have some ability. However, he's not my match. The dual sword amalgamation of the Sun-Moon sword sect is unique, but it's not hard to deal with. His gaze stopped on Zhu Yi for a moment. He softly laughed and said, "This person is indeed very strong. However, I already have a way to deal with him." Although he won the battle with Huoming cleanly, he had actually used his last trump card. If I were to be matched with him, then Xianmen Tianzong's legend of being undefeated in fights of the same realm would definitely end in my hands. As Song Qingyuan spoke, he looked at the hidden dragon kettle again and mumbled to himself, "Now let me see the strength of the other successor of Xianmen Tianzong." Chapter 315. Within the dragon concealing pot, facing Mu Jihai's ice flame divine ability, the little guy calmly dealt with it, the power of wind and lightning surging all over his body, his two fists colliding, wind and lightning adding to his body. He had already transformed into a 2-meter-tall ghost god body. Tyrannical lightning and roaring hurricanes were all over the little guy's body. The berserk power swept through all the space around him, even suppressing Mu Jihai's ice flame to the point that it was unable to get close. In terms of body size, the little guy right now was just a bit thicker than an average strong man, far from the huge figure that Song Qingyuan displayed after using the double ice and fire. But the pressure and the shock of power that he brought was even better than Song Qingyuan's double ice and fire body. The little guy at this moment, in terms of pure physical strength, looking at all the golden elixir period cultivators present, only Do Kuan could contend against him. Within the Celeritas sword sect's camp, Tao Yaoyao's heroic and pretty face revealed a playful smile, glancing at Zhao Yan beside her. He has improved compared to that time on Cloud Traversing Peak, right? If he had this level of cultivation when fighting you, he would have beaten you to the ground in 2 or 3 moves. Zhao Yan bitterly laughed, but had no choice but to nod his head and admit, his body size has become a lot smaller. On Cloud Traversing Peak he used the power of wind and lightning to increase his height over 3 meters. Now his body size is smaller, but his power is even more condensed and his strength even more powerful. He looked at the little guy. It's only been a month and he can already improve so much. Xianmen Tianzong really is a bunch of monsters. Within the pot world, the little guy stepped off, his entire body transforming into a bolt of lightning, rushing to Mu Jihai's side as fast as lightning. Wherever his body passed, a vacuum corridor was practically cleared out. The sound of air exploding incessantly lingering in the ears. When they truly began to fight, Mu Jihai's expression was calm. Under his control, the ice flame began to change. The blazing hot ice and the ice-cold flame both appeared at the same time, blending together. The two forms of ice and flame, under Mu Jihai's control, perfectly coexisted. These two completely opposite strange powers, with Mu Jihai as the center, continuously rotated, as if transforming into a huge millstone, crushing all outsiders who dared to go in. The little guy killed his way in, and immediately felt the ice flame's terrifying power surge towards him from all directions. Moreover, the deeper he went, the greater the pressure. Even if it's the most common and basic technique, if I can thoroughly understand it, I can still display an enormous power. Not to mention that the ice flame was originally the Heavenly Pool School's signature powerful divine ability. The little guy inwardly nodded his head. However, it won't be difficult for me. The 9 apertures golden elixir, the 9 innate apertures emitted a roar together, and a huge amount of heaven and earth's spiritual energy was wantonly swallowed. The little guy's body shook, and a powerful force directly tore apart Mu Jihai's ice flame ocean. When this scene fell into the eyes of the spectators, it was really boundlessly domineering. With the cultivation of the early stage of the gold elixir realm, he forcefully suppressed an opponent of the late stage of the gold elixir realm in wrestling. It was really a very shocking scene, and it subverted the understanding of many people. In Xianmen Tianzong's camp, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. Their little junior brother's power was so vigorous that it couldn't be calculated with common sense. He was a humanoid beast, truly deserving of his name. Zhu Yi was also attentively watching the little guy's performance. From the first day he entered the sect, he knew that the little guy was actually the first disciple to enter Lin Feng's sect. If it wasn't for his own intention, Zhu Yi, Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, Wang Lin who was in seclusion, and Xiao Yan who was not present would all have to respectfully address this 10-year-old child in front of them as eldest senior brother. The little guy's existence, to a large extent, also spurred the others to desperately cultivate. Otherwise, how could they be worthy of this little guy calling them senior brother and senior sister? What made people's hearts especially complicated was that among all the disciples under Lin Feng, the first person to build a foundation and the first person to form a core were both the little guy. Zhu Yi calmed his state of mind and carefully watched the battle in the hidden dragon pot. However, the more he watched, the tighter his brows furrowed. In the end, Zhu Yi couldn't bear it anymore and turned his head to look at Lin Feng. "Master, little junior brother is..." Lin Feng smiled slightly. "There's no need to worry, Tianhao knows what he's doing." Zhu Yi's eyes flashed with understanding and his face also revealed a smile. "Disciple understands, little junior brother is really..." Halfway through his sentence, Zhu Yi couldn't continue and shook his head with a smile. Inside the hidden dragon pot, the little guy was closing in step by step. Relying on his superior violent power, he forcefully tore apart Mu Jihai's ice flame and approached him. Mu Jihai stared at the little guy who was approaching him, and suddenly changed the incantation gesture of his hands. The original ice flame, whether it was the blazing ice and snow or the extremely cold flame, the two forms of power changed at the same time. The burning ice and snow suddenly cooled down and became like real ice. It was bone-piercingly cold, and the form of the extremely cold flame also changed. The temperature did not change, but the flame gradually turned into ice. The form and power of ice and fire changed in an instant. There was no stagnation at all, and it seemed to be extremely nimble, full of a smooth feeling like moving clouds and flowing water. Just this move alone made all the spectators' evaluation of Mu Jihai rise by a level. Even the group of primordial spirit big shots outside the hidden dragon pot secretly nodded when they saw it. His understanding of the Tao and his control of power are very skilled. His foundation is very solid. His future path of cultivation will be smoother, and he will encounter fewer bottlenecks. Lin Feng smiled. No wonder he dared to covet Song Qingyuan's position, he really has some skills. Only when the gap between the two sides was not too big, at least not to the extent that it made people feel hopeless, would the laggard feel jealous of the leader and want to replace him. If the gap was really so big that it made people feel hopeless, then the laggard would not even be able to feel jealous. Instead, they would have the mentality of admiration, blind obedience, and dependence, and become a pure follower of the leader. For example, the other disciples of the Heavenly Pool sect who were of the same generation as Song Qingyuan were in such a situation. The only one who had the courage and confidence to try and challenge Song Qingyuan's position was Mu Jihai. And at this moment, Mu Jihai showed the strength that made him dare to challenge Song Qingyuan. The ice flame turned into cold ice in an instant, freezing the little guy in the glacier. The world inside the hidden dragon pot also turned into a world of ice and snow. It was no longer the fusion of ice and fire, the two extremes of the ice flame power balanced. Instead, it completely gave up the heat of the flame and went to the extreme of the cold air. Mu Jihai now exerted the ice power of the Arctic flaming sun mystic art to the extreme, wanting to completely freeze the little guy. The cold air was extremely strong, and it actually froze the little guy, who was surrounded by wind and lightning, in the layer of ice. The little guy's body looked as if it was still alive, and even the wind and lightning around him had not dissipated. One could clearly see that there seemed to be lightning constantly exploding in the layer of ice, and hurricanes constantly rotating. But all of this had turned from dynamic to static. At this moment, the little guy was like an insect sealed in amber. Seeing this scene, the onlookers outside the hidden dragon pot immediately stirred up a slight commotion. Some of them were as if they had been injected with chicken blood. The disciples of the celestial sect of wonders are going to lose this time. Unexpectedly, the Heavenly Pool sect is actually so strong. Other than Song Qingyuan, this Mu Jihai's strength is also so terrifying. This time, the sect that shines the brightest in this spell gathering will definitely be the Heavenly Pool sect. As someone who had personally fought with the little guy, Zhao Yan's expression was incomparably solemn, and he slowly said, "It is still too early to make a conclusion now." Beside him, Tao Yaoyao gently curled her lips. Indeed, it's still too early. Mu Jihai doesn't intend to use this move to determine the victor. After witnessing the little guy's strength, he's hopelessly stupid if he thinks that he can win this easily. Tao Yaoyao's eyelids drooped. So the key is, can the little guy withstand Mu Jihai's true move? Zhao Yan was shocked. But just when he wanted to say something, he heard an ear-piercing sound. Crack! In the hidden dragon pot, a huge crack suddenly appeared on the layer of ice that sealed the little guy. The source of the crack was the little guy, who was frozen in the middle of the glacier. Wind and lightning surged around his body, and his strength was constantly rising. The 9 orifices of the golden elixir were absorbing a massive amount of spiritual energy, which was converted into boundless arcane energy. The sound of ice shattering could be heard constantly. From the first crack, new cracks continued to extend. In the end, it became a densely packed area, like a spider web. The more cracks there were, the weaker the chill emitted by the glacier became. On the contrary, a terrifying energy fluctuation grew more distinct, as if an ancient god was awakening in the glacier. Mu Jihai looked at this scene without any expression and changed his hand seals. All of a sudden, the sound of ice shattering disappeared. It wasn't because the little guy couldn't shatter the ice, but because the glacier itself had disappeared. The threatening cold air that had turned the space within 100 feet into a world of ice and snow had suddenly disappeared. The white world turned red in an instant. It was as if winter had turned into summer in the blink of an eye. The white world of ice and snow in the hidden dragon pot had instantly turned into a world of red flames. The little guy had just broken free from the ice, and before he could regroup, the ice had already turned into endless flames that enveloped him. The blazing energy wanted to melt him. The moment he got out of the glacier, the little guy felt as if he had stepped into the crater of a volcano. His wind and lightning physique, which had already been exhausted by the glacier, suddenly showed signs of collapsing in the face of the raging flames and lava. At this moment, Mu Jihai finally revealed a gloomy smile. The spectators outside the hidden dragon kettle were also instantly stirred. The strength that Mu Jihai had displayed this time had turned the extremely cold glacier into a completely opposite raging fire in the blink of an eye. The two extreme powers had changed at will, causing every spectator to be shocked. On the side of the purple firmament Dao, Li Kuyin looked at the little guy in the raging flame with worry in her eyes. That little guy, facing such powerful attacks from Mu Jihai, even the strength that the little guy had displayed previously had made those who supported him lose confidence. The smile on Gu Lei's face disappeared, and was replaced with a grave expression. He squeezed out 3 words through his teeth. It's dangerous. Chapter 316. At this moment, Gu Lei was not the only one who was not optimistic about the little guy. Whether it was out of concern or out of schadenfreude, everyone came to the same conclusion. The little guy was in danger. Mu Jihai's ice and fire interchangeably. The power of the two extreme attacks was so tyrannical that even his fellow disciples of the Tianqi sect were shaken. Many people stole glances at Song Qingyuan. That was because the strength that Mu Jihai had displayed was enough to challenge Song Qingyuan. Without falling into a disadvantageous position, Song Qingyuan's expression did not change. He looked at Mu Jihai with a brilliant light in his eyes and gently nodded. Sure enough, this is junior apprentice brother Mu's true strength. Inside the hidden dragon pot, Mu Jihai's performance was not over yet. He stared at the little guy in the raging flames, and then suddenly clasped his hands together. A large amount of spirit energy inside the hidden dragon pot gathered towards Mu Jihai. Then, under Mu Jihai's guidance, it was thrown into the raging magma. As if adding firewood to the fire suddenly grew stronger, and the momentum of the magma became more violent. Outside the pot, a group of northern militant imperial court cultivators watched this scene with dignified expressions. The new generation of powerful enemies emerged one after another. For all the people of the Northern Militant Empire, This was a great pressure. During the foundation establishment stage, there was Dao Yuding. During the golden elixir period, there was Song Qingyuan. This was already enough to annoy the people of the northern militant empire. Now that Mu Jihai had also displayed a powerful strength, every cultivator of the northern militant empire felt as if there was a heavy burden on their hearts. Do Kuan and Sang Luaha both had dignified expressions. When the northern militant left virtuous prince stared at the hidden dragon pot, he frowned slightly. Of course he was not afraid. Let alone Song Qingyuan and Mu Jihai. He was not even afraid of Chao Wei. The left virtuous prince only felt a bit worried. This was because from Song Qingyuan, Mu Jihai, Dao Yuding and the others, he could vaguely see that the Tianqi sect's luck was becoming more and more exuberant. They were ushering in a period of talent and strength. This was what the left virtuous prince truly valued. If this momentum was not interrupted, the strength of the Tianqi sect would inevitably take a leap in the near future. If Chao Wei and the others handled this well, they could even reach a new height. With this, the northern militant court would suffer. In the next 1,000 years, even if they weren't suppressed, there would definitely be many more restrictions. The eyes of the group of Essence Soul Realm big shots flickered. Clearly, countless thoughts appeared in their minds as they continuously calculated. As for the cultivators below, their thoughts were simple. Most of them stared nervously at the hidden dragon pot, their faces filled with excitement and anticipation. There was only one thought in their minds. That monstrous freak had brought them endless pressure. Xianmen Tianzong, who had seized all the glory, was finally going to face his first defeat. These people did not necessarily have a grudge against Xianmen Tianzong. It was entirely because Xianmen Tianzong's performance was too outstanding before, which suppressed all of them to the point that they could not lift their heads. Almost everyone had to endure the baptism of the resentful gazes of the elders of their sections. Although none of the sect elders actually said it out loud, their gazes all expressed the same meaning. Look at him, then look at you bunch of good-for-nothings. Being constantly educated by such gazes was definitely a particularly maddening thing. Therefore, more than half of the disciples of the various forces present were eagerly hoping that Xiao Budian and the others would be defeated. There was no need for more. As long as they could break the damn rumor and break the legend of Xianmen Tianzong's disciples being invincible in the same realm, it would be enough. Even if the first place in the golden elixir period still belonged to them, as long as it was not a complete victory, as long as they lost one game, it would be acceptable. This was the voice of countless people. Although Lin Feng did not know the specific thoughts of these people, he could guess what they were thinking just by looking at their expressions. A tall tree attracts the wind. Is this the so-called a tall tree attracts the wind? Lin Feng shook his head and laughed. He looked back at his disciples and laughed in his heart. Haha, in the eyes of others, my good disciples are just like other people's children, which they hate, right? Lin Feng laughed. My disciples are your nightmares. They are the next-door neighbor Xiaoming who always scores 20 points higher than you. What, are you not satisfied? A tall tree attracts the wind. As long as the tree itself was strong enough, no matter how strong the wind was, it was useless. In the hidden dragon pot, Mu Jihai might not know that he was already carrying the ardent expectations of hundreds of people, but he definitely hoped that he could defeat Xiao Budian. Including Mu Jihai, many people did not realize that they had already regarded defeating Xianmen Tianzong's disciples as a kind of glory. The hidden dragon pot itself flashed with a faint radiance. Everyone's hearts were raised. After the previous battles, everyone had discovered that every time someone was about to trigger the hidden dragon pot's protective restriction, the hidden dragon pot would light up ahead of time. The current situation was that Xiao Budian was struggling under Mu Jihai's attack. He was like a small boat in the waves, facing the disaster of capsizing at any time. Perhaps the next wave would capsize him. The hidden dragon pot had clearly sensed it, and was ready to activate the restriction at any time to help Xiao Budian. Tianhao! Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing exclaimed at the same time. Tuntin, who had always been carefree, was also nervously looking at the hidden dragon pot. Zhu Yi's face revealed a slightly surprised expression. He suddenly turned to look at Lin Feng. Master! At this moment, Xiao Budian, who was surrounded by flames and lava, suddenly had his magic power fluctuate and weaken. 1. Even if there were primordial spirit experts and many elders present, many low-level cultivators could not suppress their excitement. They all looked eagerly at the hidden dragon pot, and some people even cheered in a low voice. But the hidden dragon pot's restriction did not activate. While many people were puzzled, a long cry suddenly sounded from the flames. It was beautiful and pleasant like the cry of a phoenix, but full of majesty like the cry of a dragon. Then the sound of wind and thunder rang out. Violent thunder and hurricanes instantly broke through the encirclement of the flames. That was a powerful force that had exceeded the limits of the golden elixir period cultivators could control. It was an uncontrollable and infinite power of wind and thunder. The storm and thunder mutually transformed, and the power reached an unprecedented level. It was a huge power that Xiao Budian had never used before. It was so huge that even he could not control it. In the midst of the wind and thunder, Xiao Budian's long cry clearly transmitted a painful emotion. The power that exceeded his own control did not hurt the enemy, but hurt himself first. The first to be hurt was himself. But this powerful force, even an early-stage Yuanian cultivator had to retreat. It directly swept across the hidden dragon pot, instantly submerging the dumbfounded Mu Jihai. No matter how cold the ice and snow, or how hot the raging fire, in the face of a natural disaster like wind and thunder, it had no effect and was instantly destroyed. The hidden dragon pot's restriction had been activated, but it was not to protect Xiao Budian, but to protect Mu Jihai, who was majestic and had victory in his grasp. The victory of this confrontation belonged to Xiao Budian, and the winner was still Xianmen Tianzong. But this was undoubtedly a Pyrrhic victory. Xiao Budian, who used a power that exceeded his own limit, was not much better off. After the wind and thunder dispersed, his body was covered with cuts and bruises, like a broken porcelain doll. When Xiao Budian came out from the hidden dragon pot, he fell to the ground and could not even stand steadily. His entire body was on the verge of collapse. The little fellow gritted his teeth tightly as he stubbornly straightened his body. This exertion of strength instantly affected the injuries on his body, causing his little face to scrunch up in pain, and his pair of large eyes were filled with pain. Seeing this scene, the spectators who were originally disappointed with the result suddenly became silent again. Xiao Budian's method of obtaining victory paid a huge price. The injuries he received and the pain he felt were even greater than the loser Mu Jihai, because the hidden dragon pot actually shared the majority of the damage for Mu Jihai. In a real battle, the result was naturally Xiao Budian killing Mu Jihai with his own serious injuries. But in this battle within the hidden dragon pot, although he won the competition, in reality, after everything was settled, his injuries were more serious than Mu Jihai's. In order to obtain victory, he was willing to fight to this extent? At this time, many people suddenly remembered that no matter how much of a genius he was, no matter how powerful he was, the Xiao Budian in front of them was still a child around 10 years old. This made most of the people who originally hoped that Xiao Budian would lose speechless at this moment. Yu Hongyan could not bear it any longer. She directly flew to the side of the hidden dragon pot, wanting to support Xiao Budian. Suddenly, a tall figure in front of her was faster than her, rushing to support Xiao Budian, who was about to fall to the ground. It was Li Kuei-yin of Purple Cloud Path. Xiao Budian struggled to open his eyes. His usual high spirits were completely gone, only pain and weakness remained. He softly called out, "Fourth senior sister, elder sister Kuei-yin." He weakly smiled and said, "Fourth senior sister, I won." "Yes, Tianhao won." Yu Hongyan nodded and said, holding Xiao Budian's hand tightly. Li Kuei-yin hugged him tightly. "Don't talk for now." Facing them, Xiao Budian felt as if he had returned to the embrace of his family. He revealed his weak side and sniffed. "My body hurts, my whole body hurts." Li Kuei-yin was extremely distressed. She took out a dark green fruit from her bosom and waved it in front of Xiao Budian. "It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Look, this is your favorite thunder spirit fruit. It won't hurt after eating one." At that moment, two figures, one yellow and one white, flashed in front of Xiao Budian. They were Tao Yaoyao and Shi Xingyun. Tao Yaoyao looked at the weak Xiao Budian and gave him a thumbs up. "Not bad, not bad. Look, this is your favorite thunder spirit fruit. It won't hurt after eating one. Shi Xingyun looked at him with a complicated expression and said softly, Tianhao, your parents will be proud of you. Hearing this, Xiao Budian smiled weakly. He could not hide the pain in his eyes, which made the girls feel sorry for him. After a while, Xiao Budian finally returned to Lin Feng and the others with the help of Yu Hongyan. Lin Feng could clearly see that when Xiao Budian looked at him, he blinked his left eye and a sly smile flashed across his face. Zhu Yi also saw this scene and turned to look at Lin Feng with a stiff expression. Usually he was calm and composed. Only in front of this funny junior brother would he lose his cool. Master. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth twitched a few times. He coughed and said, Xiao Yi, I'll teach you 2 concepts today. One of them is acting cute, and the other is acting cute maliciously. Chapter 317. Looking at the pile of spirit fruits and spirit flowers that Li Kueyin and the others had stuffed into Xiao Budian's arms, Zhu Yi moved his stiff neck and gasped, Master, although I still don't quite understand what you mean by these 2 new concepts, but he unhappily glared at the little guy. However, looking at little junior brother, I seem to understand a little. Lin Feng smiled and came in front of Xiao Budian, looking at him with a smile. Xiao Budian saw Lin Feng and smiled innocently. He used mana to transmit his voice to Lin Feng. Master, I have completed the mission. Lin Feng smiled faintly, and also used mana to transmit his voice to him. Yes, I also got some other benefits. Xiao Budian chuckled. Accident, it was a complete accident. It was a pure surprise. I didn't expect those sisters to be so kind. If Hongyan knew that you were lying to her, what do you think would happen? Lin Feng looked at Xiao Budian in amusement. Xiao Budian smiled awkwardly. But master, I was really seriously injured. I didn't fake it at all. Of course he didn't fake it at all. Otherwise, even if he could fool others, he wouldn't be able to fool Qiao Wei and the others. The little guy looked at Lin Feng pitifully. Master, it really hurts. Lin Feng said snappily. Who asked you to use such a stupid method? Serves you right. Although he said that, Lin Feng still sent out a purple gas to envelop Xiao Budian, using his own mana to nourish his injured body. On the other side, Qiao Wei's voice came. If you bet, you must be willing to lose. This is what you Xianmen Tianzong deserve. Lin Feng turned around and saw 3 things floating in front of him under Qiao Wei's mana. They were the Earth Flame Lotus, the 9 Revolutions Ice Orchid, and the Vermilion Flame Ice Flower that Mu Jihai had just lost to Xiao Budian. Lin Feng nodded and accepted the 3 items without a trace of politeness. Qiao Wei said indifferently, with this we're even. Yes, that's right. Lin Feng revealed an imperceptible smile. On the other side, Mu Jihai returned to the Celestial Pool Sect's camp. His seniors and fellow disciples looked at him, but they didn't mock him. Most of them just felt sorry for him. The strength that Mu Jihai had displayed before was worthy of their respect. In terms of the battle situation, it was not that Mu Jihai had no hope of winning. It could even be said that he was only half a step away from victory. However, Xiao Budian was far more determined and valiant than others had imagined. Mu Jihai's mood was not much better. To his sensitive heart, the pity of others made him feel worse than ridicule, as if reminding him, you still can't make it in the end. No matter how close you are to success, you still fall in front of the finish line. At this time, someone suddenly said, although senior brother Mu lost, it can also be seen that the Xianmen Tianzong disciples are not truly strong to the point of being invincible. They still have their limits. If it was senior brother Song who went up, he would definitely win. Song Qingyuan smiled when he heard this, not saying anything. But the confidence that was revealed from his expression made all of the Celestial Pool Sect disciples believe that he had this certainty and confidence. If there's nothing else new, then the 2 people from Xianmen Tianzong, Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao, I'm not afraid. Song Qingyuan's gaze was calm, looking towards the dragon concealing pot. Next is the last person. The 2 stepped onto the field, walking towards the dragon concealing pot together. One was the Celestial Light Sword Sect's Zhao Yan, the other was the Great Qin Dynasty's Jiao Junshan. On Xianmen Tianzong's side, Zhu Yi's gaze also fell on Jiao Junchen. He slightly tilted his head. Tunten, the celestial light sword sex Zhao Yan, how is his strength? On the cloud-traversing peak trip, because Zhu Yi had to stay on Jade Capital Mountain to teach the new second-generation disciples, he did not accompany them. Zhu Yi had heard of the fight between Xiao Budian and Zhao Yan, but did not know the specifics of the situation. Among the people that were present, Xiao Yan was not present at this moment. Xiao Budian was currently recovering under the care of Lin Feng. Yu Hongyan's cultivation level was on the low side, and there were some details that could not be seen. Therefore Zhu Yi asked Tunten. Although Tunten was a little unreliable, it was not the slightest bit vague on such matters, straightforwardly saying, if compared to the people present now, with the strength they have already displayed as a reference, they can't compare to Huaming and Mujihai, but they have the strength to fight against those two. Compared to Tao Yaoyao and Song Qingyuan, they have no chance at all. After a slight pause, Tunten added, unless he has some kind of major breakthrough in this month. Zhu Yi faintly nodded, looking towards the glowing figure projected from the mouth of the hidden dragon pot. There, Jiao Junchen and Zhao Yan had already begun to exchange blows. Zhao Yan was still the Celeritas sword sect's signature sword master, the flowing cloud sword. Sword light and sword qi alternated between each other, changing unpredictably, both agile and ferocious. As for Jiao Junchen, he had a bye in the first round, directly advancing to the top 16. Before this, no one had seen him truly fight. His battle with Zhao Yan was his first battle in this spell gathering. The spectators were clearly even more interested in the famous Jiao Junchen. They wanted to see just what was so special about this new scholar of the Qin dynasty. Please give me some pointers, friend Zhao. Jiao Junchen cupped his hands together in front of Zhao Yan's flowing cloud sword, before his foot lightly paused. As his foot paused, mist suddenly surged in the sky, lifting his entire body up. With a light turn, he easily avoided Zhao Yan's sword light. Zhao Yan was faintly startled, his sword aura changing. The sword light similarly transformed into mist, wanting to capture Jiao Junchen's agile figure. But who would have guessed that Jiao Junchen would step on the clouds, drawing an incomparably mysterious trajectory in the air, directly passing through the cracks in Zhao Yan's mist sword qi. Outside the hidden dragon pot, the expressions of all the Celeritas sword sect sword cultivators changed slightly. Even Tao Yaoyao and the few Yuanying stage ancestors had grave expressions. Zhao Yan's flowing cloud sword had already received the Celeritas sword sect's inheritance, and was incomparably skilled in it. His sword light transformed into qi. After forming mist, it sprinkled out, covering the sky and covering the earth, without any gaps. If there really was a crack in the mist sword qi, then it was naturally formed by the flow of magic power. But this crack was so tiny that it was almost undetectable. But Jiao Junchen was like a knife cutting a cow, finding this tiny crack. Not mentioning finding the crack, Jiao Junchen also extremely accurately cut into the crack. His movements were light and smooth, calm and content, not touching the mist sword qi on both sides of the crack in the slightest. Just like that, he unimpeded killed his way in front of Zhao Yan. The others also looked at Jiao Junchen in shock. Those present were all knowledgeable people, and could see that Zhao Yan's flowing cloud sword was already quite perfect, but it was so easily broken through by Jiao Junchen. As Jiao Junchen advanced on the clouds, there was the indistinct cry of a bird. This sound contained a mysterious magic power, also suppressing the changes in Zhao Yan's flowing cloud sword. Seeing Jiao Junchen attack, Zhao Yan actually already knew that things were not good. He wanted to once again cause the sword light to change, but because of the cry of the bird, he discovered that his magic power had become sluggish. By the time the sword technique changed, he was already a beat too slow. And at this moment, Jiao Junchen had already cut into Zhao Yan's sword aura. As he brushed past Zhao Yan, he suddenly turned sideways, making a posture of drawing a bow and knocking an arrow. Then a white light shot towards Zhao Yan like an arrow. In this critical moment, Zhao Yan mobilized all the sword qi in his body, turning it into the cloud cover fog, dark wind and rain sword technique that specialized in defense. However, Jiao Junchen didn't just shoot one white arrow. Instead, he shot 4 arrows in a row. After the first arrow, he immediately shot 3 more arrows, one after the other, bombarding the same point in a continuous stream. This piercing tactic that focused on one point immediately displayed its effect. It actually forcefully pierced through Zhao Yan's cloud cover fog, dark wind and rain sword aura. Zhao Yan's complexion changed. He immediately tried to repair the hole in his sword aura. His reaction was fast, and his magic power quickly revolved. The hole that Jiao Junshin had pierced through was quickly repaired. But in this short moment, Jiao Junshin shot out another arrow. It was as fast as lightning, and the arrow had already pierced through the hole in Zhao Yan's sword aura, striking Zhao Yan's vital point. The hidden dragon pot's spell activated at this moment. In just a short moment, Zhao Yan had been defeated. The spectators outside the pot all stared blankly at the scene in front of them. They did not think that this match would actually be decided so easily. This match was the shortest among the 8 matches of the second round. Other than Li Kuei-yin taking the initiative to admit defeat. The speed was so fast that Zhao Yan himself was somewhat unable to react. He was even somewhat at a loss. I have already lost? The people of the Celeritas sword sect were even more tongue-tied. Admittedly, Zhao Yan, who was unable to use the Yuanying stage magic item, the Heavenly Talisman Sword Seal, was not in his strongest state. But just based on his own cultivation, he was also a powerhouse among the late stages of the Golden Elixir. But he was defeated so easily. In the eyes of all the spectators, Jiao Junshin's victory came too easily. The gaze that Tao Yaoyao looked at Jiao Junshin with suddenly became as blazing as the sun. The vigorous battle intent made the fellow sect disciples beside her retreat far away. Song Qingyuan's expression became much more serious, secretly saying in his heart, "Who would have thought that the biggest enemy is not Xianmen Tianzong, but this Jiao Junshin?" When Jiao Junshin came out from the hidden dragon pot, the entire venue sunk into silence. Zhao Yan was defeated very quickly, but that was not because Zhao Yan was too weak. There was only one reason. Jiao Junshin was too strong. Strong to the point that he simply could not be measured using the strength of Golden Elixir period cultivators anymore. On Xianmen Tianzong's side, Zhu Yi looked at Jiao Junshin in silence, but his gaze was unprecedentedly bright. Yang Qing frowned slightly. That spell that Jiao Junshin used just now, what was that all about? Yu Hongyan shook his head. I don't understand. I just felt that the appearance of him stepping on the flowing clouds was like riding a carriage. Your feeling is correct, Lin Feng calmly said. This person's Dao techniques originate from the ancient Confucian sects, and his divine abilities and spells are comprehended from the 6 arts of Confucianism: ceremony, music, archery, control, calligraphy, and mathematics. The spell that he used to defeat Zhao Yan just now was the combination of archery and control. Chapter 318. 6 Arts. Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, Tunten, and even Zhuge Fengling were slightly taken aback. Lin Feng smiled and did not speak. Zhu Yi came back to his senses and answered for Lin Feng. Just as Master said, Jiao Junshin's techniques are derived from the 6 arts of Confucianism, also known as the 6 arts of the gentleman. They are ritual, music, archery, imperial, calligraphy, and number. Ritual refers to etiquette, music refers to music, archery refers to archery, imperial is driving a carriage. In ancient times, scholars did not sit in a sedan or ride a horse, but drove a carriage. Zhu Yi explained for the others. Calligraphy refers to literature and also refers to calligraphy. Number refers to arithmetic and number theory knowledge. Slowly Zhu Yi said, in ancient times, these 6 arts were thought to be the 6 skills that scholars should master. At that time, Confucian students were not the least bit related to bookworms who did not have the strength to truss a chicken. They would not be ridiculed for not being diligent in the 4 limbs and not being able to distinguish between the 5 grains. They were far from what some of today's bookworms could achieve. He looked at Jiao Junshin, who had come out of the hidden dragon pot and returned to the Qin dynasty's camp. He said softly, "This person comprehended the principles of the 6 arts and comprehended his own techniques. It is quite ancient." Yang Qing also looked at Jiao Junshin. Master just said that the technique that Jiao Junchen used to defeat Zhao Yan was the combination of archery and imperial? Zhu Yi said. Yes, there are 5 types of imperial: Mingyi Luan, chasing water chariot, passing monarch watch, dancing on the thoroughfare, and chasing bird left. At the start, Jiao Junchen controlled the cloud chariot to dodge Zhao Yan's sword attack. It should have been derived from the chasing water chariot. The chasing water chariot can gallop along the river without falling into the water. It is the most dexterous. After that, he followed the fine cracks of Zhao Yan's misty sword qi and drove straight in. It was like dancing on the thoroughfare, passing through narrow passageways with ease. The carriage is accompanied by the sound of a luan bird, suppressing the changes in Zhao Yan's sword art. The cry of a luan bird and the sound of a carriage correspond to the sound of a luan bird. Finally, he cut into Zhao Yan's sword energy. When he brushed past Zhao Yan, he suddenly drew his bow and shot an arrow. This is called chasing birds to the left, which means that when hunting, one chases a bird and shoots it down from the left. Zhu Yi explained in one breath, analyzing the changes in Jiao Junchen's previous spells one by one. And at the same time that he cast chasing bird left, he perfectly combined shooting and defending. There are 5 types of riding and 5 types of shooting. They are the white arrow, Sanlian, Shanzhu, Xiangqi, and Jingyi. Jiao Junchen's first arrow is a series of arrows, releasing 1 arrow at the front, followed by 3 arrows in a row. The arrows are connected to each other, like a string of pearls. Only by shooting 4 arrows in a row can he break through Zhao Yan's defense. And following that, he immediately used the Shanzhu, which is also rapid shooting. The speed of the arrows, the aiming time is short, the arrow is loaded and released. But it doesn't lose its aim, accurately shooting through the gap that was opened with the series of arrows before, finally defeating Zhao Yan. Speaking up to here, Zhu Yi paused a bit before continuing. Apart from the exquisite spell, his mana is equally vigorous. Even if it's aimed at a single point, breaking through the Cellerita's sword sex cloud shrouding fog, wind and rain as dark, sword energy with 4 arrows is also not something that an ordinary person can do. Zhu Yi did not use mana to transmit to Yu Hongyan and the others, nor did he purposefully lower the volume of his words. Therefore his explanation before could be heard by everyone in the spell conference. Only until now did many people's faces reveal a look of sudden understanding. Before, when Jiao Junchen and Zhao Yan fought, the process didn't seem complicated and the duration was also very short. But even Zhao Yan himself lost bafflingly. Many people were even more confused watching. But after going through Zhu Yi's clear analysis step by step, everyone finally understood just how Jiao Junchen defeated Zhao Yan before. The group of people's gazes all looked towards Jiao Junchen, only to see that Jiao Junchen's face didn't have the slightest hint of anger. Instead, he was pleasantly surprised, looking at Zhu Yi and repeatedly nodding his head. Right now I really can't wait to spar with you. This is equivalent to directly admitting that Zhu Yi's analysis is correct. After Tao Yaorao heard this, she unhappily glanced at Zhao Yan behind her. Do you understand how he lost? Zhao Yan had a bitter smile on his face, repeatedly nodding his head. I understand. If I had listened to head senior sister's words earlier, and concentrated on learning instant sword escape, I wouldn't have lost so badly. Tao Yaoyao glared. Nonsense, it's a sure win. The surrounding people couldn't help but secretly laugh when they saw Zhao Yan being lectured like a grandson by Tao Yaoyao. Lin Feng also smiled in spite of himself, but in his heart he was sure that Tao Yaoyao wasn't speaking without thinking. Instant sword escape is the Cellerita's sword sex top sword Dao, even above the cloud-traversing sword. Its speed is extremely fast, flying over thousands of mountains and rivers in an instant. It is the fastest sword Dao under the heavens other than Mount Shu's Shaozi sword artifact. It is equally famous as the Heavenly Sword Sex Heavenly Sword Escape. In terms of close-distance sprinting speed, it is even above the Heavenly Sword Escape. Among the sword arts, only Mount Shu's Shaozi sword artifact can compare. The difference is that Mount Shu's Shaozi sword artifact pierces through space, while the Cellerita's sword sex instant sword escape incorporates a bit of the profound concept of time. Instant and eternity, one is the shortest, the other the longest, respectively representing the two extremities of time. Being able to completely comprehend these two, one can also comprehend the true meaning of time. And the concept of the power of instant is also the foundation of the Celeritas sword sect sword arts. When Tao Yaoyao defeated the Sun-Moon sword sect pair of sword companions 1-2 earlier, she executed instant sword escape, using speed to fight slow, truly displaying the tactic of unbreakable speed to the extreme, forcibly breaking the Sun-Moon sword sect's dual sword amalgamation. Even though Lin Feng was thinking about his own matters at that time, he was multitasking and also paying attention to the process of the spell assembly. Seeing Tao Yaoyao's sword art, his eyes also lit up. Instant sword escape is the Celeritas sword sect's trump card. Lin Feng thought in his heart. Even though Tao Yaoyao said that Zhao Yan can steadily defeat Jiao Junshin after cultivating instant sword escape, this is clearly impossible. But with instant sword escape, Zhao Yan at least has the strength to fight Jiao Junshin. After all, the strength that Jiao Junshin had displayed before was most likely only the tip of the iceberg. After hearing Tao Yaoyao's words, Jiao Junshin only smiled slightly. Even if Zhao Yan cultivated instant sword escape, he would still not be his match. At most, it would be more troublesome for him to win. If it was Tao Yaoyao personally going up against him, Jiao Junshin would only take it seriously. Those who can enter the top 8 will not be weak. Shi Xingyun said with a smile at the side. Other than Sister Yaoyao and Zhu Yi, it's very likely that I'll be in the same group as you. Jiao Junshin smiled. Among the 7 people, the opponent that I want to meet the most is Zhu Yi. Next is you. Tao Yaoyao and Song Qingyuan are both ranked behind you. Shi Xingyun shook her head and could not help but laugh. However, speaking of which, Zhu Yi is indeed the most suitable opponent for you. I really want to see how the two of you fight. On the Xianmen Tianzong's side, Zhu Yi did not say much after analyzing the profoundness of Jiao Junshin's techniques. Yu Hongyan glanced at him and asked, "Second senior brother, a bystander has a clearer view of things. You can clearly analyze Jiao Junshin's movements now, but can you still do the same when you're in his shoes?" Yu Hongyan's expression was solemn. She had no intention of challenging Zhu Yi. Instead, she was genuinely worried. Zhu Yi did not misunderstand her good intentions. His expression remained calm as he said frankly, "I can't do it. In fact, when I first saw him fighting Zhao Yan, I couldn't see through him at first. In the beginning, I could only see that the foundation of his techniques is the shooting and defense of the 6 arts. As for the specifics, he only figured it out after the outcome of his battle with Zhao Yan was decided." A glimmer flickered in Zhu Yi's eyes as he calmly said, "If I fought him before his battle with Zhao Yan, then in actual combat, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to divert my attention to slowly ponder. The outcome of the battle would be hard to predict. However, there's no need to worry now, because I already have a rough idea of his background. Even if he hasn't used the ritual, music, calligraphy and mathematics arts of the 6 arts, I can roughly guess what they are like." Zhu Yi faintly smiled. "Even if there are new tricks outside of the 6 arts, I have a rough idea in my heart. If I fight him right now, I won't be as flustered as the Celeritas sword sect's Zhao Yan. However, this person's strength is indeed very strong. I have confidence in myself, but I can't easily say that I'll win." Following Jiao Junshin's defeat of Zhao Yan, the second round of the Golden Elixir period's cultivator competition came to an end. The final 8 were also determined. Zhu Yi, Gu Lei, Shi Xingyun, Tao Yaoyao, the Sun-Moon sword sect's Li Dongtao and Yunmei's sword companion duo, Song Qingyuan, Xiao Budian, and Jiao Junshin were the final 8 lineup. Xianmen Tianzong and the host's Great Qin dynasty both occupied 2 spots, once again becoming the focus of the audience. With the top 8 confirmed, the third round of drawing lots also began. It was still presided over by Lord Changle. Everyone's attention was focused on the copper bottle in front of Lord Changle. Lin Feng was no exception. To him, it didn't matter which opponent his sect's disciples drew. As long as they didn't draw together with his own people, it was fine. Previously, when he was at the foundation establishment stage, Yang Qing and Yu Hongyan being drawn together was really a pain in the ass matter. Lin Feng stared at the copper bottle and thought to himself, if possible, it's best to be in the same group as the Tianqi sect. Lord Changle quickly drew the first name tag, which immediately caused a slight uproar, because the first one to be drawn was Xiao Budian. Many people's eyes fell on Xiao Budian, who was shrouded in purple qi, beside Lin Feng. Li Kuei-yin and Shi Xingyun even showed a touch of worry on their faces. Being the first to be chosen meant that he would be the first to go up and compete. Xiao Budian had a bloody battle with Mu Jihai before, and his injuries were not light. Even with Lin Feng taking care of him, whether or not he could recover to his peak condition was also unknown. In this case, it was natural for him to rest for a while, which was more conducive to his recovery, but now he had to be the first to compete. Immediately after, Xiao Budian's opponent was also drawn. It was the Sun-Moon Sword Sex sword companion duo, Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. With the strength of these two, any one of them would be the best among the late-stage golden elixir cultivators. Now that they were fighting together, the power of the two swords had greatly increased, making people break out in cold sweat for Xiao Budian. The following matches were quickly drawn. The second match was between Song Qingyuan and Gu Lei, while the third match was between Tao Yaoyao and Shi Xingyun. At this moment, the fourth group had a result without drawing lots. It was a combination that caused all the cultivators present to be in an uproar. Xianmen Tianzong and Zhu Yi, against Great Qin Dynasty's Jiao Junshen. Chapter 319. The competition between the cultivators in the Golden Elixir period of the Desolate Sea Assembly had reached the third round. Those who could enter the top 8 were not easy to deal with. At this point, it was hard to predict who would win and who would lose. Not to mention the low-level cultivators, even people like Lin Feng, Chao Wei, and Shi Zongyue could not say for sure, because the strength of the two sides was very close. There was only a thin line between victory and defeat. In terms of pure strength, the gap was very small. At least, it was not a decisive factor. The psychological quality, battle strategy, and state of mind of the two sides were the key to victory. Absolute strength no longer existed. But among the 4 matches in the quarterfinals, the most attention-grabbing match was the one between Zhu Yi and Jiao Junshen. One was Xianmen Tianzong, who came from the assembly and had never tasted defeat, and the other easily defeated his opponent in the competition that had just ended. In addition, the two of them had similar temperaments, causing everyone to be filled with anticipation for this match. There were even some busybodies who called this match an early final, believing that the winner would eventually crush all the other matches and obtain first place. This statement may be a bit extreme, but it also fully showed that the majority of the people thought highly of Zhu Yi and Jiao Junshen. However, among the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, the first to appear was not Zhu Yi, but Tiny Tot. Lin Feng withdrew his mana, revealing Tiny Tot, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. At this moment, there were no visible injuries on his body, but his spirit was still a bit weak and dispirited. Shi Zongyue, Dao Master Changlu, and Zhuge Guang looked at each other with a somewhat complicated expression. Tiny Tot's previous injuries were extremely serious. Not to mention that he was on the verge of death, it would take a long time for him to recover. Even if there was a mighty primordial spirit to treat him, it would not be able to recover to such a state in a short period of time. Is it the effect of the Taiyin True Water? Or is his cultivation and mana so terrifying? Dao Master Zhuge Guang frowned slightly, and transmitted his voice to Shi Zongyue through mana. Shi Zongyue shook his head slightly. I can't. The worry in Dao Master Changlu and Zhuge Guang's eyes deepened when they heard this. Although there were primordial divinity realm cultivators from each family present at the Barren Sea Assembly, there was no doubt that the strongest person was Shi Zongyue, the Great Qin Dynasty's King of Tranquility. Even Shi Zongyue couldn't see through Lin Feng, and he didn't even understand how he cured Tiny Tot. This made Dao Master Changle and Zhuge Guang's psychological evaluation of Lin Feng go up another level. When Shi Zongyue and the others thought of how the Great Zhou Empire's Minister of Internal Affairs, Mei Wulong, had come to congratulate them on their first opening ceremony in Xianmen Tianzong, Shi Zongyue and the others felt their hearts sink. On the other side, Lin Feng did not know that there were so many thoughts going through the minds of the 3 essence soul experts of the Great Qin Dynasty. He was currently instructing his disciple, Tianhao, Before the assembly started, Shi Xingyun came over to greet you. Lin Feng patted Tiny Tot's shoulder. Do you remember what she said at the time? As he said this, Lin Feng's gaze swept across Zhu Yi and the others. Tiny Tot and Zhu Yi looked at each other and replied. She once said that among the cultivators in the Golden Elixir period, there are 3.5 who can fight against me and second senior brother. Jiao Junshin counts as one, Celeritas sword sect's Tao Yaoyao counts as another. Tiny Tot paused and looked in the direction of the Sun Moon sword sect. There's a pair of sword companions in the Sun Moon sword sect. Together, they count as one. Lastly, Shi Xingyun counts as half. Zhu Yi said plainly. She's clearly being modest when she says she counts as half. Among the cultivators in the Golden Elixir period in this assembly, apart from little junior brother, only she and Jiao Junshin can truly give me pressure. He also looked in the direction of the Sun Moon sword sect. As for the pair of sword companions in the Sun Moon sword sect, they must be referring to those two. Tiny Tot's next opponents were the pair of disciples from the Sun Moon sword sect, Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. Both of them were in the late stage of the Golden Elixir period. In the previous round of 16, they had defeated a pair of cultivators from the Hua clan. Due to their magical abilities, the Hua clan's combat abilities were very strong. In an environment like the Hidden Dragon Pot where they could fight freely, their abilities were very outstanding. However, they had always been unlucky. Whether it was in the Foundation establishment stage or the Golden Elixir period, most of the disciples from the Hua clan had run into Xianmen Tianzong's guns and became stepping stones for Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and the others. Even so, the battle between Hua Ming and Hua Chun and Zhu Yi's group was also very fierce. It fully displayed their powerful combat abilities and did not allow others to underestimate them at all. However, in the previous battle with Li Dongtao and Yun Mei, the pair of disciples from the Hua clan had suffered a crushing defeat. During the battle, Li Dongtao and Yun Mei had displayed abilities that surpassed the other disciples from the Sun Moon sword sect. The Eclipse sword art and the Full Moon Divine Light sword derived from the Sun and Moon dual swords complemented each other and had boundless power. Tao Yaoyao's feat of defeating the other pair of sword companions from the Sun Moon sword sect by herself was dazzling, but anyone with a discerning eye could tell that if she had drawn Li Dongtao and Yun Mei as her opponent, it would have been very difficult to say who would have won. Zhu Yi glanced at Xiao Budian and said to Lin Feng, Master, junior brother's injuries have not healed. I'll go with him this time. Lin Feng smiled. You've already obtained the qualifications to enter the ancient desolate sea world. Leave the opportunity to others. Zhu Yi and the others were taken aback. Then, everyone's gazes fell on Tunten. Of everyone present, Zhu Yi, Yu Hongyan, and Yang Qing had all obtained the qualifications to enter the ancient desolate sea world. Even Zhuge Fengling had hitched a ride with Yu Hongyan. The only exception was the little Taotai, Tunten. Tunten pointed at the tip of its nose. Me. Lin Feng smiled. Of course it's you. He patted Tunten's little head. Also, you'll be the one to fight this round. Tianhao is just here to make up the numbers. Xiao Budian's big black eyes turned and he chuckled. Master, you're adding fuel to the fire. Lin Feng smiled. He pinched the heads of the two little fellows and turned their bodies around. Then he gently pushed their backs. Go, the delicacies in the ancient desolate sea world are waiting for you. Tunten's eyes lit up. I've long heard that there are many delicious things in the ancient desolate sea world. It's a pity that I never had the chance to go in. This is indeed a good opportunity. The cultivators of the various factions looked curiously at Tunten, who was walking side by side with Xiao Budian towards the Hidden Dragon Pot. Tunten's appearance after transforming into human form was a little older than when Lin Feng first saw her, but she was still only 5 or 6 years old. She looked even younger than Xiao Budian. Everyone could not help but feel extremely curious. Many people could not see through Tunten's cultivation and thought to themselves, could it be that Xianmen Tianzong is going to fight 1 against 2 again? With the previous record of Yu Hongyan and Tao Yaoyao, the spectators lamented in their hearts. What's wrong with the world now? It's as if you're too embarrassed to call yourself an expert if you don't fight 2 against the twin sword harmony that destroyed the Sun Moon sword sect? However, outstanding cultivators like Tao Yaoyao and Shi Xingyun could vaguely sense the terrifying power contained in Tuntun's young body. Those with sharp senses could even tell that the power undulations were not from a human cultivator, but similar to the demonic power of the demon race. The Yuanying stage ancestors with higher cultivation frowned. Demon race and a pure-blooded Taotai at that? Shi Zongyue also looked at Lin Feng. Sect leader Lin, isn't it inappropriate to send a demon race to participate in the Dharma assembly? In the current Great Heaven primordial world, the human race and the demon race were on opposing sides, and many wars had broken out between them in history. Since the last war between the two worlds, the two races had entered a period of recuperation. Conflicts still existed, but they were not as intense as before. Only near the spatial crack connecting the divine land and infinite wasteland would there be bloody fights. Many human cultivation factions had the habit of raising demonic beasts and spirit beasts, and there was no lack of demon kings among them. In the dragon pool of Taishi Temple, there was even a great saint dragon with an indestructible demonic soul. However, generally speaking, human cultivators did not treat these demonic beasts as equals. Most of the demon race were seen as mounts, weapons, and a source of cultivation materials. It was similar to how mortals domesticated and raised hunting dogs, cows, sheep, and horses. Lin Feng was also well aware of this, but if it was not to send Tuntun and Zhuge Fengling into the ancient desolate sea world, why would he suggest that the Sun Moon Sword sect could send two people to fight? This demon is also my in-name disciple, Lin Feng said indifferently. There is nothing wrong with participating in the Dharma assembly. I also don't need her to compete from the first round. I will not squeeze out other people's spots. King Anliang, please make an exception. Sword Venerable Flowing Light frowned slightly. Although she is an in-name disciple, as the sect leader, your identity is extraordinary. Are you sure you want to accept a demon as a disciple? Lin Feng chuckled. If I remember correctly, 10,000 years ago, among the 6 personal disciples of the Celeritas Sword sect's 4th-generation sect leader, 2 of them were from the demon race. However, in the end, they made an indelible contribution to the development and growth of the Celeritas Sword sect. Sword Venerable Flowing Light was speechless. After the Celeritas Sword sect deliberately downplayed this part of history, very few people knew about it. Even the disciples of the sect knew very little about it. He did not expect that Lin Feng would actually know about it. Without waiting for the others to speak, Lin Feng's gaze landed on Chao Wei. I remember that in the history of the Heavenly Pool sect, there was a demon Venerable Snow Mountain who was a transformation of an Arctic demon bear? Chao Wei snorted and did not speak. Education without discrimination has existed since ancient times. It is a very normal thing. Lin Feng's gaze swept across the other primordial spirit big shots, making them shudder with fear. For a long time, the human race and the demon race were not always opposing each other. There were also times when they got along harmoniously. Although they were mainly hostile, who could guarantee that they did not have a dark history? It was just that these were all old matters, unlike Lin Feng, who was almost committing crimes against the wind. However, Lin Feng only said that Tuntun was an in-name disciple. Let alone a personal disciple, it was not even an official disciple. Everyone could not pester him. The group of primordial spirit big shots pinched their noses and endured. The people below naturally had nothing to say. They could only have strange expressions on their faces as they watched Tuntun and Xiao Budian enter the hidden dragon pot together. Fortunately, the system has historical information on most sections. As long as it is not an internal secret, it can be found. Lin Feng also stared at Tuntun and Xiao Budian. The opportunity is given to you. You have to work hard. Chapter 320. After watching Tuntun and Tiny Tot walk towards the hidden dragon pot, Yangqing suddenly came to her senses. She looked at Zhu Yi with a hesitant expression. Zhu Yi turned around and asked, "What's wrong?" "Fifth junior brother, you can speak your mind." Yangqing smiled embarrassedly. "Second senior brother, I feel that Song Qingyuan from the Celestial Pool sect performed very well too." "Not bad indeed." Zhu Yi nodded calmly. Based on the strength that he displayed during the spell gathering, he could even be ranked in the top 3. However, the pressure that he gave me was indeed not as great as that of Jiao Junshin and Shi Xingyun. After a pause, Zhu continued. It was purely a spiritual feeling. Both Yangqing and Yu Hongyan were at a loss. Lin Feng then said indifferently, the spiritual feeling that your second senior brother was talking about is not something mysterious or psychological. When he was observing others, there were some details that triggered his thoughts and caught his attention. Perhaps he did not figure out the principle behind it, and did not realize the crux of it, but he did discover some clues. Zhu suddenly turned around and said, Master, you mean? Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Your feeling is correct. Although Songqing Yuan had displayed great strength during the Golden Elixir period, he had also revealed some flaws. He was not as invulnerable as Shi Xingyun and Jiao Junshin. That's why you felt that he was not as threatening as Shi Xingyun and Jiao Junshin. Zhu fell into deep thought. This woman, Shi Xingyun, is not someone who would speak without thinking. The Great Qin Dynasty's intelligence agency must have a certain level of control over Songqing Yuan's situation. Under such circumstances, the reason why she excluded Songqing Yuan from her list of opponents might be because she has a card up her sleeve. Lin Feng didn't say anything. He glanced at the Tianqi sect's camp and thought to himself, there are still not many things that can be seen from this battle. I think the battle between him and Gu Lei from the Purple Cloud sect will be able to verify my guess. At this moment, inside the Hidden Dragon Pot, the Sun Moon Sword sect disciples Li Dongtao and Yun Mei were curiously studying Tuntin. Before they entered, their sect elders had already informed them of Tuntin's background, and knew that it was a pure-blooded Taotai. Yun Mei's gaze shifted back and forth between Tuntin and Xiao Budian. A long while later, she suddenly smiled and said, Senior brother, bring out your full strength. Even if you know they are very strong, it will still be very embarrassing if you lose. Li Dongtao lightly nodded, his gaze falling on Xiao Budian. Your injuries have not healed, it's better not to force yourself. The little guy stuck out his little chest and said with emotion, I'll do my best. Even if I lose, I won't regret it. I'll do my best. Although his face was still weak and pale, Xiao Budian's words were extremely heroic and immediately drew cheers from outside the Hidden Dragon Pot. Even those who usually hoped that Xianmen Tianzong would lose cheered for his determination and bravery. On the contrary, Tuntin, who was beside Xiao Budian, curled his lips and looked at him with a look of disdain. It was this guy who had secretly used his magic power to transmit a message to her before entering the Hidden Dragon Pot. I'll leave this battle to you. I'll just watch from the side. Now he was pretending to be a hero in front of outsiders. He really didn't know shame. I'll hide to the side like Zhuge Fengling, and see how you make a fool of yourself. In any case, you're injured now and can't outrun me. A treacherous smile appeared on Tuntin's little face. While he was calculating in his mind, he suddenly saw Xiao Budian charge straight at Li Dongtao and Yun Mei with a loud shout. Tuntin was immediately taken aback. Am I seeing things? This little demon king, is he really going to fight with his opponent while injured? At this moment, Xiao Budian's palms came together. Hurricanes and lightning were already violently swirling around his body as he clashed with Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. Li Dongtao let out a long roar and unfolded the glorious sun sword Wei. Like a rising sun, it shone with boundless radiance and met Xiao Budian's attack head-on. Within the rays of sunlight, Yun Mei's undetectable moonlight sword light was mixed in. Both of them cooperated seamlessly and had great tacit understanding. The sword light and magic power from both sides mutually stimulated each other, combining their powers to weave a sword light cage that was going to trap Xiao Budian inside. Xiao Budian was calm and unafraid. The power of endless wind and lightning continued to rise as he fought 1 against 2 against Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. Tuntin blinked its eyes. Could it be that what he said before was just a joke? The little Taotai cautiously approached the battle and observed. Although Xiao Budian's heroic spirit reached the clouds, his injuries had not yet healed and he was firmly suppressed by Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. If he continued to increase his magic power, he might once again fall into a state of loss of control. At the same time, it would affect his old injuries, causing Xiao Budian to have many misgivings. Tuntin's heart was beating like a drum. If I just run away and hide now, it seems a little disloyal. More importantly, his master is watching from outside. If I don't help at all, I'm afraid I won't have a good time when I go out. Moreover, I must win to enter the ancient desolate sea world to find delicious food. If I lose, this little demon king will still be able to enter, but I won't be able to. In an instant, many thoughts flashed through Tuntun's mind. In the end, it made a decision. And I'll just stay by his side and assist him. I'll leave the main battle to him. Thinking of this, Tuntun did not approach. It directly opened its mouth and used to swallow the heavens and devour the earth divine ability. There seemed to be a black hole in its mouth, and a huge suction force emerged from it, instantly sucking away a small portion of Li Dongtao and Yun Mei's sword light magic power. Tuntun smacked its lips. The taste is not bad. Li Dongtao and Yun Mei were slightly startled. The Taotai race's swallow the heavens and devour the earth divine ability was rather famous, but it was extremely rare. Today was the first time the two had seen it, and they felt that it would be difficult to deal with. Yun Mei's sword light did not change much, but Li Dongtao's sword technique suddenly changed. The originally dazzling glorious sun sword way suddenly became dim, as if a heavenly dog had swallowed the sun. The sun instantly disappeared, and the land fell into darkness. In the air, there was only a faintly discernible ring flickering with weak light, like an annular solar eclipse. It was a variant of the glorious sun sword way, the eclipse sword technique. Li Dongtao's sword technique changed to the eclipse sword technique, while Yun Mei's sword technique was still the gorgeous moonlight sword way. The two's sword light dimmed together. Tuntun immediately felt that it could not absorb much of the opponent's magic power, as if the area in front of it had become empty. However, Xiao Budian took this opportunity to counterattack. When the opponent's sword force faded, he immediately advanced with his head held high. However, Li Dongtao and Yun Mei's sword force immediately erupted again after being temporarily restrained. Li Dongtao's sword force changed from the eclipse sword technique to the orthodox glorious sun sword way. Golden light flickered like the sun in the sky, illuminating the land. On the other hand, Yun Mei's sword move had changed from the traditional moonlight sword Dao to the full moon divine light sword Dao that was wide open and wide. The power and limelight was not the slightest bit weaker than Li Dongtao's sunlight sword Dao. A full moon rose into the sky, actually trying to compete with the sun for glory. The two sword arts did not follow the path of one main and one auxiliary this time. Instead, they weakened together when they were weak, and strengthened together when they were strong, instantly unleashing the most powerful explosive power. Xiao Budian, who had wanted to counterattack, immediately suffered a head-on blow. In the face of Li Dongtao's and Yun Mei's majestic sword light, Xiao Budian did not dare to hesitate. He immediately gave up on attacking and focused on defending himself. If he did not do so, he would immediately be turned into a sieve by the sword light. Even so, Xiao Budian was sent flying like a kite with its string cut by the Sun-Moon Sword Sect duo's counterattack. Li Dongtao's and Yun Mei's sword force had only just unfolded when wave after wave swept towards Xiao Budian and Tuntun like a raging sea. Tuntun was greatly alarmed. It took in a deep breath and activated the devouring the heavens and devouring the earth divine ability to forcibly devour Li Dongtao's and Yun Mei's sword light magic power. However, the opponents yin and yang complemented each other. The sun and moon seemed to be endless, causing Tuntun to feel more and more pressure. Even if it's the Yuanying stage, such magic power is too powerful. The Sun-Moon Sword Sect's dual sword combination is too weak. At this critical moment, Tuntun did not dare to hold back. He activated the true Sunfire with all his might and bombarded Li Dongtao's and Yun Mei's sword light. The true Sunfire's divine light continuously exploded, destroying one sword light after another. However, it was still unable to stop Li Dongtao's and Yun Mei's unceasing attacks. However, it had temporarily weakened the opponent's offensive and bought Tuntun valuable time. The little Taotai suddenly took in a deep breath, and its little belly instantly became round. In the next instant, Tuntun opened its mouth and made a gesture towards Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. Puff. The sun and moon sword light that Tuntun had temporarily swallowed into its body with the devouring the heavens and devouring the earth divine ability was spat out, colliding head-on with Li Dongtao's and Yunmei's follow-up attacks. The Sun and Moon Sword Light collided with the Sun and Moon Sword Light. The total amount of the Sun and Moon Sword Light that Tunten spat out was after all limited. It could not compare to the endless magic power of Li Dongtao and Yunmei's Sword Light, but the instantaneous explosive power was superior. What a pity. Tunten sighed. But at least their offensive was interrupted. I should take advantage of this opportunity. While thinking, Tunten turned around and was about to slip away, but what she saw made her tear up. The last scene that remained on her retina was Xiao Budian's low-key and elegant back, disappearing into the depths of a dense forest in the pot world with a swoosh, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. At this moment, there seemed to be a bleak autumn wind blowing in the hidden dragon pot, leaving Tunten alone in the wind. She vaguely felt a row of crows flying over her head, and bursts of sharp laughter that seemed to be mocking her idiocy could be heard. The air froze at this moment, and time seemed to have come to a standstill. Tunten swallowed with difficulty, turned its head, and saw that Li Dongtao and Yunmei's twin swords had joined together. Sword light sword once again, sweeping towards it from all directions. In their view, although Xiao Budian's actions were the same as Zhuge Fengling's, the strength of the two was completely incomparable. Li Dongtao and Yunmei did not dare to think that Xiao Budian was slacking off, and would only think that he was really waiting for an opportunity to ambush them. The Sun-Moon Sword sect pair instantly made the same decision, which was to first concentrate all their strength on one person, and then finish off Tunten before dealing with Xiao Budian. Tunten was directly submerged in the boundless sea of sword light, and a shrill roar resounded throughout the hidden dragon pot. Shi Tianhao. Chapter 321. The spectators outside the hidden dragon pot praised in unison. The Taotai clan swallow the heavens and devour the earth is really powerful. Yes, but it's really unexpected that she possesses the true sunfire. There's nothing surprising about that. It must have been passed on to her by the master of the celestial gate. Everyone knows that Xianmen Tianzong has mastered the cultivation and manipulation method of the true sunfire. That's right, the head disciple of the Xian Gate sect master, Xiaoyan, simultaneously possesses the Nether Evil Emperor and the true sunfire, the two great true fires. Speaking of which, he still hasn't come to participate in the spell gathering this time. Otherwise the Xian Gate Sky sect would really have no one to stop him. In that case, the master of the Celestial Gate was not joking when he said that the pure-blooded Taotai was his disciple in name. It's true. Everyone was worried. The Celestial Sect of 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 the Celestial Sect is truly full of talents. What they did not know was that the majestic Tunten in their eyes was currently complaining incessantly in his heart, cursing the little guy's 8 generations of ancestors. She had used all the cursing words of the human race on the little guy several times. But no matter how mad Tunten was, she did not have the time to settle the score with Li Dongtao for the time being. All of her attention was focused on dealing with the tide-like attacks from Li Dongtao and Yunmei's combined swords. Even with her Taotai body, she was somewhat unable to withstand the mighty sword light and magical power. Shi Tianhao, don't let me catch you. Otherwise, even with your master's protection, I will swallow you. Tunten gnashed her teeth in anger, completely forgetting that she had been planning to let the little guy take the blame. Outside the hidden dragon pot, Zhu Yi and the other disciples did not think much of it. In their view, the little guy was also hiding and looking for an opportunity. Unlike when Yu Hongyan fought against the Sun and Moon dual swords, Zhuge Fengling could not help at all. The little guy only needed to find the right opportunity to defeat the enemy and win. Moreover, he already had old injuries on his body. Adopting a guerrilla tactic with Tunten in the front to restrain the enemy was a very correct tactic. Only Lin Feng could vaguely guess that the little guy and Tunten had actually split up in the face of disaster, and were even mutually sabotaging each other. This made him secretly amused. The two of you are the perfect embodiment of what it means to not be afraid of a godlike opponent, but afraid of a pig-like teammate. In the hidden dragon pot, Tunten, Li Dongtao and Yunmei were locked in a bitter battle. Most of their attention was placed on each other, making it impossible for anyone to find the little guy's whereabouts. However, the spectators outside the pot could see Xiao Budian's every move through the reflection of light from the mouth of the pot. Compared to the stalemate of the battle, many people had actually placed their attention on Xiao Budian. Obviously, Xiao Budian had the ability to break the balance of the battle. If there was a change in the battle, it should be on Xiao Budian's next move. On the purple cloud Dao's side, Li Kuei nervously watched Xiao Budian and asked Goulet, "What do you think he will do?" After pondering for a moment, Goulet slowly said, "It's hard to say. If it were me, I would first carefully hide my whereabouts, and then wait for Li Dongtao and Yun Mei to reveal a flaw, and then defeat them in one strike. After all, this little guy hiding will cause great psychological pressure on Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. Under anxiety and pressure, it's very difficult to remain calm and not make the slightest mistake. The slightest emotional fluctuation could affect the overall situation, especially when the Sun and Moon sword sex dual sword combination requires extreme tacit understanding and telepathy." On the Great Qin dynasty's side, Shi Xingyun and Jiao Junqian were also exchanging their opinions. "Actually, there's no need to go through so much trouble," Jiao Junqian said disapprovingly. "With the combined strength of Shi Tianhao and that Taotai, they will only be stronger than the Sun and Moon twin swords. They have a higher chance of winning in a head-on fight." Shi Xingyun stared at the dragon concealment pot and slowly said, "Perhaps Tianhao's injuries are much more serious than we guessed. Even with the help of the master of the celestial sect, he still can't solve the problem from the root." Jiao Junqian's expression changed slightly. "You mean to say that although he looks like he's mostly recovered, it's actually just an illusion?" "I'm also not sure, but at least if he fights the Sun and Moon twin swords head-on like you said, it's very likely that his injuries will relapse." Shi Xingyun thought for a bit and said cautiously, "It's also possible that he wants to preserve his strength as much as possible in preparation for the upcoming spell gathering. Since that Taotai only needs to fight this one battle, there's no harm in releasing all of his strength. There's no need to hold back at all." On the Celeritas sword sex side, Zhao Yan similarly looked towards Tao Yaoyao in confusion. "First senior sister, what will he do next?" Dressed in white, Tao Yaoyao shrugged her shoulders. "No matter what he wants to do next, in the end it will all come down to one point, and that is to cut off the connection between Li Dongtao and Yun Mei. This is the most effective and most fundamental way to break the twin swords combination. Once the two are unable to establish a connection and the twin swords combination is broken, then in the end they're nothing more than two comparatively outstanding late-stage golden elixir cultivators, and not like now, able to challenge Yuanying stage cultivators. As someone who personally accomplished the feat of 1 versus 2, defeating a pair of Sun and Moon sword sex sword companions, Tao Yaoyao's evaluation of the Sun and Moon sword sex twin swords combination was undoubtedly very convincing to the surrounding people. In the battle before, Tao Yaoyao used the speed advantage of her instant sword escape to continuously fight with speed, making her opponents unable to take care of both front and back, unable to maintain their inherent rhythm and tacit understanding. As a result, in the end they were defeated one by Tao Yaoyao. At this time, everyone was focused on the hidden dragon pot, staring at the little guy inside, wanting to see what choice he would make. Then, everyone watched as the little guy leapt into the dense forest deep in the mountains. And first get out of the enemy's line of sight, then find a better place to attack. At the same time, his figure disappearing can also bring pressure to the opponent. Many people watched and continuously nodded, making an interpretation of the little guy's actions in their hearts. Next, they saw the little guy leisurely stroll in the forest. His face suddenly revealed a look of pleasant surprise, and he picked a few spirit flowers under a large tree. "I don't understand, what does this mean?" The spectators were confused. Jiao Junqian's gaze also looked towards Shi Xingyun. "Are the spirit flowers and spirit herbs in the hidden dragon pot real?" Shi Xingyun nodded his head. "That's right, the hidden dragon pot is a heavenly abode-type magic treasure. The spirit energy within the pot is abundant. Not only can it nourish cultivators to cultivate inside, it can also grow all kinds of spirit flowers and medicinal herbs." Jiao Junqian's brows slightly furrowed. "But even if it's real, Why did he pick those spirit flowers? Is he trying to use poison? Shi Xingyun's face also revealed a look of confusion. That can't be. The spirit flowers he picked are called divine iris fragrance. They are nourishing spirit herbs. They are completely non-poisonous. I know there is a poison mixing method that can mix a few types of originally non-poisonous spirit herbs to produce a strong poison, but I've never heard of a poison mixing method that uses divine iris fragrance. Everyone was baffled as they watched the little guy stroll around the mountain forest. Then he picked spirit flowers and spirit fruits one after another. Looking at his appearance, it simply didn't seem like he entered the dragon concealing pot to compete with others, but rather to specifically pick medicine. The group of people patiently watched as the little guy casually picked the things he was interested in, then walked all the way to the top of the mountain. When he reached the top of the mountain, the little guy was already carrying a large pile of things he had picked. He then turned around and sat on a rock at the top of the mountain, nodding his head in satisfaction as he watched the 2 humans and 1 demon fighting at the foot of the mountain. Is he going to make his move? Everyone's hearts were in their mouths at this moment, nervously watching the little guy's every move. His next move was very likely to turn the entire situation around. The little guy revealed himself. Li Dongtao and Yin Mei were very observant, so they naturally saw him sitting at the top of the mountain with a glance. Their hearts tightened. He's occupying that high vantage point. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to imitate the archers of the secular world? This pair of sword companions from the Sun Moon Sword sect immediately raised their vigilance. This kind of long-range attack was usually fast enough, accurate enough, and possessed an extremely powerful penetrating magic. Perhaps the little guy wanted to use this kind of method to kill one of them in an instant. The distance between them meant that he might need a long time to accumulate power for the next spell, and he was afraid that it would be interrupted by others. The power of this kind of spell was naturally extraordinary. At this moment, even Tuntin had forgotten about the little guy's evil act of digging a hole for itself, and was full of expectations for him. Quickly take care of them, and I will be magnanimous and forgive you from before. Crack. A clear and melodious sound rang in the air. As if completely unaware that he was already the center of attention, the little guy leisurely and contentedly picked up a spirit fruit, bringing it to his mouth and taking a big bite. Juice flowed out of his mouth. It tastes very good. The little guy sighed in satisfaction. He continued to eat the spirit fruit while using his big black eyes to watch the fierce battle between Tuntin and Li Dongtao below with interest. As he ate, he even shook his head and clicked his tongue in praise. That sword just now was beautiful. As he spoke, the little guy dexterously threw up a jujube-sized spirit fruit, and then opened his mouth to catch it, swallowing it in one gulp. Tuntin, you should have dodged to the right, and then decisively counterattacked. The little guy's right fist hammered into his left palm, and his expression was full of regret. Then he took out a thick rattan and bit open the skin. A large amount of juice immediately flowed out of the rattan. The little guy drank a mouthful of the rattan juice, and then ate a mouthful of the spirit fruit, revealing a satisfied expression on his face. Oh, the sun and moon twin swords have such a transformation? I never expected it in the past. He was completely infatuated with the scene, unaware that outside the hidden dragon pot, the entire lakeside of the North Wind Sea had already fallen into a deathly silence. The several hundred people standing in the venue were like an unmarked graveyard in the middle of the night. A gust of wind blew past, and the crowd finally regained some vitality. Almost everyone was looking at the sky at a 45-degree angle, tears streaming down their faces. Beat him to death. Beat him to death. We must beat this brat to death. Not a single person spoke, but the crowds will seem to solidify at this moment, soundlessly echoing between heaven and earth. Inside the hidden dragon pot, Tuntin's furious voice was deafening. Shi Tianhao, this lady will definitely kill you. I will definitely kill you. Even if your master wants to kill me afterwards, this lady will definitely kill you. Even if I die with you, I will still kill you. Chapter 322. Xiao Budian's behavior of sitting on the top of the mountain watching the show, coupled with the scene of Tuntin jumping and cursing, made everyone outside the hidden dragon pot speechless. Everyone looked at Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong with very strange eyes. Zhu Yi looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. 100 years of fame lost overnight. Yu Hongyan, who had always been upright, also lowered his stubborn head at this moment, looking at his toes as if he could see a flower. Yang Qing turned his face to the side. He could not bear to see it. He was so ashamed and angry that he wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Although Zhuge Fengling did not speak because of Lin Feng's presence, she kept shaking her head and at the same time sent a telepathic message to her gold-digging rat. Although I often cheat people, I can't sell out my companion in front of hundreds of people, and do it in such a calm and unrestrained manner. Her gold-digging rat's little head also kept nodding when it heard this. Only Lin Feng's expression was normal, looking at the hidden dragon pot with an indifferent expression, but in his heart he was also bitterly laughing nonstop. Stinking brat, you can even sell out your teammates in such a high-profile manner. You're also a talent. Dao Master Changel looked at Lin Feng and coughed. Sect Master Lin, it seems that your disciple has not recovered from his injury, and is not able to participate in the competition. If it is completely done by your registered disciple, it doesn't matter if he loses, but if he wins it will be unfair to Li Dongtao and Yunmei of the Sun and Moon Sword sect. Lin Feng smiled faintly. I agree with what Lord Changel said, but it's still too early to make a conclusion now. Oh. Dao Master Changel's eyes flashed, and he looked back at the hidden dragon pot. In the hidden dragon pot, Xiao Budian, who had been watching the show from the top of the mountain, picked his ear and looked down at the unceasing cursing Tuntin. He said in a dissatisfied tone, so noisy. You can't even resolve such a small matter. So useless. Tuntin felt that her tears were about to form a river as she angrily roared. You think you're useful? Come and try. Io. She was busy quarreling with Xiao Budian, and was almost stabbed by Li Dongtao's sword in a moment of carelessness. The little guy curled his lips. If I wasn't injured, would I still need you? If you have the ability, don't get hurt. Tuntin was so angry that she vomited blood. Not only did she have to face the dual sword combination attack of the Sun Moon Sword sect disciples, she also had to fight a battle of wits and courage with her teammate Xiao Budian. She was so depressed that she wanted to die. Li Dongtao and Yunmei looked at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Yunmei sighed. Fighting against such an opponent. Why does it feel so shameful even if I win? Li Dongtao said in a muffled voice, let's win first. With that, the two increased their power, wave after wave of attacks stronger than the last, pressuring Tuntin so much that it did not even have the chance to speak. The little guy was clearly watching from the side, and they naturally would not waste this opportunity. They would first finish off Tuntin before dealing with the little guy, which would make things much easier. But at this moment, the little guy suddenly moved. The half-spirit fruit that he had not finished eating was directly stuffed into his mouth and swallowed. Then, he seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning, instantly rushing down the mountain to Li Dongtao and Yunmei's side. Yunmei said with a smile, Little brother's considerations are too simple. I was just guarding against this move of yours. As she spoke, she did not show any weakness. She swung her full moon divine light sword, facing the little guy head-on. She wanted to force the little guy to fight head-on and bully him for not recovering from his injuries. The little guy roared, Tuntin. Tuntin shouted in dissatisfaction, I won't be fooled again. If you're not going, I'm going back to the top of the mountain. The little guy laughed. Tuntin roared, I'll deal with you later. With that, Tuntin raised its hand, and the sun's true fire that was like 10,000 golden needles shooting together flew out and attacked Yunmei. Yunmei completely ignored it, and continued to fiercely attack the little guy. Beside her, Li Dongtao changed his sword momentum and blocked Tuntin's sun's true fire for her. The Sun Glory Sword and the sun's true fire clashed like two scorching suns colliding. Sparks flew in all directions, and the radiance was so bright that one could not open their eyes. At this moment, the corners of the little guy's mouth curled into an imperceptible smile. The wind and thunder heaven movement martial art was activated, and his entire body was like a bolt of lightning. He suddenly changed directions in the air and drew a curved line, throwing Yunmei aside and attacking Li Dongtao. A shadow emerged in Yunmei's heart. She faintly felt that something was wrong, but she did not slow down at all. The power of the full moon divine light sword was pushed to the limit, turning into a bright white light that shot straight at the little guy. It was as if the Milky Way had reversed and poured down. Outside the dragon concealing pot, a smile suddenly appeared on Lin Feng's face, while the Sun Glory Sword Venerable frowned slightly. A thoughtful look appeared on the faces of the other primordial spirit bigwigs when they saw this scene. In response to Yunmei's sword, the little guy chuckled and raised his hand to strike out the Tiger Soul Golden Disc, releasing the demonic tiger's soul essence to block Yunmei's attack for himself. Yunmei's expression immediately changed. She had originally wanted to besiege Wei to save Zhao and force the little guy to give up on attacking Li Dongtao. Who could have imagined that the little guy would suddenly release the peak advanced golden elixir demonic tiger's soul essence to save her, causing her plan to fall through. In this way, Li Dongtao, who was fighting Tuntin with all his might, immediately fell into the predicament of being attacked from two sides. What made Li Dongtao and Yunmei's heart sink was that the little guy's interference actually seemed to separate the two of them, causing them to fall into a state of fighting on their own, unable to coordinate with each other. Most of the spectators outside the pot were baffled, completely unable to understand how the little guy and Tuntin were able to turn the situation around in an instant. Only a few people had a look of sudden realization on their faces. Zhao Junqin clapped his hands inside. Spectacular. Shi Xingyan nodded his head. Li Dongtao and Yunmei's cooperation is already very tacit. The changes in the sword techniques and the communication of magic power are all extremely close. But it's a pity that people are ultimately different. Even if they are telepathic and specially cooperate with each other, there is no guarantee that the two of them can maintain the same thoughts at all times. Especially the difference in personality, it will cause them to make different judgments when faced with the same choice. In the Celerita sword sect camp, Zhao Yan puzzledly looked towards Tao Yaoyao. Eldest senior sister, just what is this? Tao Yaoyao stared at the dragon concealing pot while absent-mindedly answering. Li Dongtao and Yunmei will actively help each other, but the difference in personality caused them to choose different ways of helping each other. Li Dongtao's personality is calm. He doesn't seek to be successful in everything. He first seeks to avoid making mistakes. So when Yunmei was attacked and needed his protection, Li Dongtao chose to defend conservatively, blocking the attack for Yunmei. And don't look at Yunmei as a girl. Her personality is actually very proactive. Her fighting style also leans towards the radical side. When Li Dongtao encountered a threat and needed her help, Yunmei chose to take the initiative to attack, attacking where the enemy must save, thus forcing the enemy to give up their original intention to attack and return to protect themselves. Tao Yaoyao's gaze fell on the little guy, the corners of her mouth revealing a hint of a smile. Looks like that little guy isn't really sitting on the mountain eating fruits and watching the show, but has always been observing the details of Li Dongtao and Yunmei's battle. He saw through this point and made effective use of it. Zhao Yan stared at the dragon concealing pot and frowned. It broke the Sun-Moon Sword Sect's dual sword combination so easily. It's different from me and that little girl Xianmen Tianzong back then. Back then we were truly 1 against 2. The other companion couldn't be counted on. Tao Yaoyao rolled her eyes in annoyance. And this little guy in front of us, as well as that pure-blooded little Tao Tai, either one of them have the ability to contend against the Sun-Moon twin swords alone. If those two little guys join forces to fight the Sun-Moon twin swords head-on, it's not that they have no chance of winning, but it'll take a lot more effort. Tao Yaoyao continued. In such a situation, as long as Li Dongtao and Yunmei have the slightest flaw, this flaw will be infinitely enlarged until it becomes completely irreparable. She withdrew her gaze from the dragon concealing pot and said in a somewhat bored tone, "No need to look anymore. Once the dual sword combination is broken, the outcome has already been decided. That little guy used the most effortless method to obtain victory." Tao Yaoyao's judgment was correct. After Li Dongtao and Yunmei's dual sword combination was broken, they no longer had the strength to contend against the little guy and Tuntin. They only lasted for a period of time before being defeated. The little guy successfully advanced to the top 4, while Tunton also obtained the qualification to enter the ancient desolate sea world. Outside the dragon concealing pot, someone from the Heavenly Pool Sect's camp said in annoyance. This also let that brat pass. Senior brother Mu clearly beat him to such a seriously injured appearance. Mu Jihai's face was so dark that it seemed as if water was about to drip from it. On the other hand, Song Qingyuan's expression was very calm. If one looked closely, one could even see a hint of relief and satisfaction on his face. Even though we won, most of the threat was caused by the pure-blooded Tao Tai. Even though Shi Tianhao saw through the loophole between Li Dongtao and Yun Mei's team, in reality, when they really fought, he was just a support. Song Qingyuan laughed in his heart. And even so, he was forced to use a magic tool. If I remember correctly, before this, when the disciples of the Celestial Sect of Wonders faced their enemies, most of them were very arrogant. They only used their own magic power and divine abilities, and rarely used external forces. This kid has indeed reached his limit. There's nothing to worry about. On the other side, the Xianmen Tianzong group naturally welcomed the little guy and Mu Jihai's victorious return. Zhu Yi looked at the little guy and continuously shook his head. You should have just observed the opponent's flaws. Why did you have to make it so conspicuous? Nothing was delayed. That's pretty good. The little guy smiled. Shi Xingyun is right. It was indeed difficult to fight against the pair of sword cultivators alone. However, it was much easier since I had help. He smiled happily, but Tunton was completely enraged. You still dare to say that? Her tiny body jumped up and down in anger. She pointed at the tip of the little guy's nose and scolded. Shi Tianhao, you bastard. Now that you've obtained a spot to enter the ancient desolate sea world, I'm going to settle the score with you. Do you really think the Tao Tai is a pushover? Chapter 323. The little guy glanced at Tunton and sneered. Didn't you think of doing nothing? Didn't you think of standing aside and letting the two of them beat me up? Tunton was stunned. She did have such a plan, but it was a pity that she was not as fast as the little guy. She was not as shameless as the little guy. She lowered her voice and said, Of course I didn't. I was the one fighting with my life on the line, okay? The little guy snorted. Forget it. Even if I lose this match, I can still enter the ancient desolate sea world. The spots are mainly for you. Don't you want to do anything? How can there be a free lunch in this world? Tunton still wanted to retort, but the little guy killed it with a single sentence. Golden deer, black spirit flood dragon, heavenly river jade bell fruit, purple jade melon, scarlet fire oil pear, essence gold fruit, pine needle spirit snake, 8 treasure chicken, 9 heart sparrow, pearl fish, purple lightning martin. Oh right, there's also the azure light vine, jadeite spirit celery, and dragon scale bamboo shoots. She swallowed her saliva and pretended to be cold. Why are you talking about these things? We are discussing the problem of you betraying me. However, the last sentence immediately made her spill the beans. It's useless to say so much. You don't have it. The little guy looked up at the sky and leisurely said, It will be soon. Tunton's eyes lit up. Really? Where? The little guy looked at her and chuckled. So what if I tell you? You don't seem to be interested. You. Tunton's facial features immediately squeezed into a bun. She grabbed the little guy's arm and said fiercely, Give me everything, at least half, and I won't pursue the matter just now. The little guy raised his eyebrows. In your dreams. I don't even have enough for myself. Lin Feng did not pay attention to this pair of clowns, instead saying to Zhu Yi, Little Yi, seriously watch this match, pay attention to every detail. Zhu Yi looked at Song Qingyuan and Gu Lei walking towards the hidden dragon pot, and slowly nodded. Lin Feng's gaze also looked towards the direction of the hidden dragon pot, thinking, This match should be able to verify my guess. After the little guy's match with the moon and sun swords, the second match was between Heavenly Pool Sect's Song Qingyuan and Purple Cloud Path's Gu Lei. From the past records, Song Qingyuan had defeated his old enemy Du Kuan of the Northern Militant Imperial Court, and was in the limelight. Although Gulei was sent to the top 8 by his junior sister Li Kuei-in, no one dared to underestimate him. Sure enough, from the beginning, the two sides fought fiercely. The ice and fire intertwined, and the lightning flashed. The two used the power of their respective spells vividly. Whether it was the destructive power of the spells or the fine control of the spells, they all displayed an extremely high standard, which was a feast for the eyes of the spectators. The strengths of both parties were on par with each other, and they were locked in battle. It could almost be said that this was the most exciting and the most evenly matched battle since the Golden Core Realm Cultivators competition began in the Dharma Assembly. The turning point of the battle was Song Qingyuan's sudden close attack. He used the ice and fire double body and defeated Gulei with his tyrannical physical strength. The cultivators of Purple Cloud Path all showed a regretful expression. After Gulei's defeat, no one from Purple Cloud Path could enter the top 4 in this spell conference, whether it was the Foundation establishment or the Golden Elixir period. Gulei himself was more free and easy. After coming out of the hidden dragon pot, he looked at Li Kuei-in and smiled helplessly. "I've let you down. If I had known earlier, I would have admitted defeat and let you enter the top 8. I don't need to rely on this to prove myself." Li Kuei-in shook her head gently. "If it was me, it wouldn't take long for me to lose to Song Qingyuan. How could I fight with him until the last moment like you?" Just as Li Kuei-in said, Gulei and Song Qingyuan jointly contributed a wonderful battle that could be called a textbook. Everyone benefited a lot and respected them. Although Gulei was defeated, he also won everyone's respect. His senior and junior brothers of Purple Cloud Path only felt that it was a pity, but they still walked up to comfort Gulei. On the other side, Song Qingyuan's popularity rose again because of his battle with Gulei. He defeated Do Kuan and Gulei, two powerhouses who could be called seeded contestants, consecutively, making his place in the top 4 seem very valuable. Now, Song Qingyuan's chances of winning the first place were even gradually higher than Zhu Yi and Jiao Junshin. However, Lin Feng looked at Song Qingyuan at this moment, and a smile gradually appeared at the corner of his mouth. "My previous guess was correct. Unless he has been deliberately setting up a trap until now, this person is indeed nothing to worry about. He can be removed from the threat list." Lin Feng looked at Zhu Yi beside him. He saw Zhu Yi frowning slightly and staring at Song Qingyuan's figure, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You can tell?" Lin Feng asked with a smile. Zhu Yi replied, "I vaguely have some inspiration, but it's like looking at flowers in the fog. It's not clear enough." Lin Feng smiled and gave him a hint. Zhu Yi's eyes immediately lit up. "I see. If that's really the case, it's indeed much easier to defeat him. We also have to be wary of him deliberately setting up a trap," Lin Feng reminded. Zhu Yi nodded. "Master is right. However, even if he is deliberately setting up a trap, the location of the trap has already been exposed. We just have to be careful." Lin Feng looked at the hidden dragon pot. "I'm afraid the next battle will be a little boring." Zhu Yi was stunned. He looked at Shi Xingyun and Tao Yaoyao, who were walking toward the hidden dragon pot, and fell into deep thought. Different from Lin Feng, the majority of the people at the scene were also looking forward to this match. They all thought that this match would not lose to the previous one. Tao Yaoyao was publicly recognized as the top descendant of the Celeritas sword sect during the Golden Elixir period. She had already become famous hundreds of years ago. Strictly speaking, she could not even be considered to be of the same generation as the majority of the people who participated in the spell gathering. Even the younger disciples of the Celeritas sword sect who entered the sect later did not even know of the existence of such a person, let alone the others. Hundreds of years ago, Tao Yaoyao had already reached the peak of the late stage of the Golden Elixir. She was only a step away from the nascent soul stage. She was shockingly talented, not only in the Celeritas sword sect, but also in the entire Nine Heavens Sword Alliance. She was a super genius. Her strength was shocking. She killed the Yuanying ancestor with the late stage of the Golden Elixir, causing quite a commotion at the time. Unfortunately, it was also because of that battle that Tao Yaoyao's Golden Elixir almost shattered. She had no choice but to stay in the late stage of the Golden Elixir for hundreds of years, wasting countless days. But after 100 years of recuperation, even though Tao Yaoyao still had no hope of advancing to the Yuanying stage, she had recovered her original strength. Ever since she participated in the spell gathering, she crushed all of her enemies. She defeated the Sun-Moon Sword Sect's dual sword combination by herself. Her fame was unparalleled. And before Shi Xingyun participated in the spell gathering, her reputation was not prominent. The saying of Yuanying Lofty Cloud, Golden Elixir Nebula, was only circulated within a very small circle. This time's Desolate Sea spell gathering was the stage where Shi Xingyun truly displayed her strength. She had also displayed her powerful strength. She also defeated all of her opponents and advanced to the next round. Even Sangluaha, the top divine soul warlock in the Golden Elixir period, was defeated by her. Moreover, it was obvious that Shi Xingyun was at ease. The fact that she had refined the primordial heavenly dragon's soul in her divine soul made people think highly of her strength. Even though she had only displayed the toughness of her divine soul, after merging with the dragon's soul, her cultivation of the Great Qin dynasty's 5 emperors' true dragon secret art would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Compared to Yu Hongyan and Dao Yuding, who were in the foundation establishment realm, Tao Yaoyao and Shi Xingyun were also known as the peerless twin beauties of the Golden Elixir period. Many busybodies hoped that there would be a showdown between them. Many people regretted that Yu Hongyan and Dao Yuding did not have a showdown. Now that Tao Yaoyao and Shi Xingyun, who were in the Golden Elixir period, would there be an even more exciting showdown? Unfortunately, the ideal was very fulfilling, but the reality was very harsh. The passionate showdown between the beauties that many people were looking forward to did not happen. The battle between Tao Yaoyao and Shi Xingyun was just as Lin Feng had said. The process was extremely depressing. Simply put, it was one side attacking with all their might, while the other side was like a turtle, defending with all their might and not retaliating. Tao Yaoyao did not disappoint the audience. She did not even use the cloud travel flowing light sword. She immediately used her strongest instant sword escape. Her body turned into flowing light, so fast that people could not see her with the naked eye. They could only sense her with their divine sense. Within the space of the hidden dragon pot, one could see streaks of sword light interweave in the air to form a net. The previous sword light still remained on the retina of the audience, but the second, third, and fourth sword light had already appeared. On the other hand, Shi Xingyun's performance made people's jaws drop. He was so conservative that it made people vomit blood. He gave up on all possible attacks and focused all of his energy on defense, defending against Tao Yaoyao's storm-like attacks. The anticipated exciting showdown turned into a one-sided attack and defense drill. Other than the Celeritas Sword Sect disciples who were excited and cheering, the majority of the audience felt greatly disappointed. It was far from what they had expected. The only highlight of Shi Xingyun's contribution was the technique that shocked the audience. White, green, black, red, and yellow light dragons spiraled and connected to form a ring. The 5 elements were born, unbreakable, and turned into an immortal fortress that protected Shi Xingyun in the center. No matter how fierce Tao Yaoyao's attacks were, the 5-colored barrier did not waver. The White Dragon Emperor's Book, Blue Dragon Emperor's Book, Black Dragon Emperor's Book, Red Dragon Emperor's Book, and Yellow Dragon Emperor's Book were the 5 major branches of the Great Qin dynasty's 5 emperors' true dragon scriptures. Under normal circumstances, it was already difficult for the imperial family members to cultivate one. Shi Xiaoqian was hailed as a genius when he cultivated 2 of the Red Dragon Emperor's Book and the Yellow Dragon Emperor's Book. However, Shi Xingyun had actually cultivated all 5. Such talent could be said to be shocking. When they saw her 5-colored light dragons flying together, the entire audience went into an uproar. They could not wait to see whether Shi Xingyun's 5 elemental light dragons were stronger, or Tao Yaoyao's instant sword escape was sharper. Unfortunately, Shi Xingyun immediately poured a bucket of cold water on everyone's heads. The 5 elemental light dragons only defended and did not attack. It was as if he was wearing a turtle shell. No matter how Tao Yaoyao hit him, he did not retaliate. In the end, Tao Yaoyao could be considered to have completely let go of herself. She only attacked and did not defend. All of her energy was spent on attacking, and her defense was full of holes. However, Shi Xingyun endured and did not waver. Her determination to defend to the death did not waver. It was as if she had entered the arena just to fight to a draw with Tao Yaoyao. The low-level cultivators watched gloomily. On the other hand, Lin Feng, Shi Zongyue, and the others watched with interest. The few big shots were all looking at the hidden dragon pot in high spirits. Chapter 324. Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot stared at the light projected from the mouth of the hidden dragon pot. The light reflected everything that was happening inside the hidden dragon pot. Shi Xingyun's 5 elemental light dragons kept shrinking. Gradually, the light dragons were no longer visible. Instead, it looked like a pure 5-colored barrier that covered the ground like a huge bowl. Meanwhile, Tao Yaoyao had transformed into an endless stream of sword light. She attacked Shi Xingyun from all directions, hoping to find a loophole in her defense and break through it. Between the two of them, one attacked like a storm, while the other defended like a watertight wall. Although the battle seemed one-sided, both of them had displayed outstanding strength. From another perspective, the battle was not inferior to the battle between Song Qingyuan and Gu Lei. She did it on purpose. After watching for a while, Tiny Tot suddenly said, Shi Xingyun gave up on attacking on purpose and focused on defending. With her strength, she might not be at a disadvantage if she were to fight against Tao Yaoyao. Zhu Yi nodded in agreement. That's right. However, in that case, the two of them would be evenly matched. It would be hard to tell who would win. If they were to fight, it would be normal for either side to win. As long as the other side has a loophole, it would be difficult to turn the tables. Zhu Yi slowly said, obviously, Shi Xingyun doesn't want to fight in such a risky and unpredictable way. Tiny Tot frowned. However, is she asking for a draw by giving up on attacking? If she wants to win in such a way, unless she has other plans, she would definitely lose if she were to defend for a long time. After all, the attacker has the upper hand. The two of them looked at each other. Their eyes flickered at the same time as they said in unison, Tao Yaoyao's golden elixir. Tiny Tot pounded his left palm with his right fist and suddenly said, so that's Shi Xingyun's plan. Tao Yaoyao's golden dan was once irreparably damaged. Although it's fine after hundreds of years of recuperation, and has even regained its strength, a damaged golden dan can't be compared to its original state. Zhu Yi nodded his head and said, that's right. It won't be a problem for a short period of time, but if the battle drags on, Tao Yaoyao's damaged golden elixir might crack again. He looked at the hidden dragon pot and said, Tao Yaoyao's previous battles always ended in a very short period of time. On one hand, it was because she was very powerful, and on the other hand, it was because she knew that she couldn't fight for long. Therefore, she fought like a lion hunting a rabbit, using her full strength from the start to end the battle in the shortest time possible. Shi Xingyun knew this, which was why he chose to defend with all his might. He allowed Tao Yaoyao to attack him as she pleased. He wanted to wear Tao Yaoyao down. The little guy asked doubtfully, but can't Tao Yaoyao see this? Did she just walk right into Shi Xingyun's trap? Hearing this, Zhu Yi also fell into deep thought. It's just my personality. At this moment, Lin Feng said calmly, Tao Yaoyao can choose not to attack, but the two of them can just stare at each other in the hidden dragon pot until the end of time. However, for Tao Yaoyao, this is undoubtedly a sign of weakness. It's equivalent to admitting that she can't break through Shi Xingyun's defense. That woman is arrogant and competitive, so she can't tolerate this. Lin Feng smiled. Let's take a step back and say that Tao Yaoyao saw through Shi Xingyun's plan and also controlled her temper, and didn't make a move. For Shi Xingyun, there's no loss. Let's just compete in patience. Shi Xingyun has long been prepared for a long battle. If she doesn't care about defending like a turtle, then she won't care about who will starve to death first. Although Lin Feng's tone was relaxed, Zhu Yi, the little guy, Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, and the others were deep in thought. Seeing them like this, Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction. If you can defeat your opponent in terms of strength, you can just crush them with your strength. However, when the level of strength of both parties is similar, or even completely equal, The deciding factor is a battle of wills. He turned to look at the hidden dragon pot and said, unless Tao Yaorao has a way to break through Shi Xingyun's defense, even if she keeps attacking, Shi Xingyun will still have the upper hand. As long as Tao Yaoyao doesn't break through Shi Xingyun's defense, the worst outcome would be a draw. In fact, judging from Tao Yaoyao's continuous attacks, Tao Yaorao has consumed a lot of her magic power, so Shi Xingyun has a higher chance of winning. Lin Feng smiled. The problem is that Tao Yaoyao has run out of tricks. She has no way of breaking through Shi Xingyun's defense. As soon as Tao Yaoyao finished speaking, the streams of light dancing in the hidden dragon kettle suddenly disappeared, revealing Tao Yaoyao's figure. She looked at Shi Xingyun expressionlessly and said calmly, I've lost this round. She looked at Shi Xingyun and said, if we continue fighting you'll counterattack, right? I've consumed a lot more magic power than you. If we were to fight normally, I'd lose more than I win. Tao Yaoyao suddenly smiled. No, you won't counterattack. As long as I don't stop, you'll continue to defend until you kill me. The barrier formed by the 5 elemental light dragons dispersed, revealing Shi Xingyun, who was dressed in a yellow robe. He looked at Tao Yaoyao and smiled. Sister Yaoyao, thank you for letting me win. Don't give me that. Tao Yaoyao snorted. Her white robe fluttered as she exited the hidden dragon pot and returned to where the members of the flashback sword sect were. Her junior brothers and sisters fell silent. They did not know what to say. In a sense, Tao Yaoyao had suffered a huge setback. According to the original plan, she was one of the strong contenders for the first place. She was guaranteed to be a super-seeded contestant in the top 4. However, she was eliminated during the quarterfinals, which was quite unexpected. As for Shi Xingyun, who had been keeping a low profile before the Desolate Sea Assembly, his reputation skyrocketed after his victory. Just like Song Qingyuan, Shi Xingyun's path to the next level was filled with gold. Both Sang Luoha and Tao Yaoyao were extremely powerful opponents. Among the cultivators from the major forces, not only the cultivators in the Golden Elixir period and the foundation building stage, but even the Yuanying patriarchs had a whole new level of respect for Shi Xingyun. The way they looked at her was much more serious. When Shi Xingyun returned to the Great Qin dynasty's camp, she saw Jiao Junchen smiling. Tao Yaoyao will definitely compete with you again after this. If Sister Yaoyao can successfully get the sky-mending vine to repair the cracks in the golden elixir, I will definitely avoid her in the future, Shi Xingyun said with a smile. She glanced at Jiao Junchen. It's your turn. You must be anxious from waiting, right? Jiao Junchen nodded calmly. It's been a long time since I could not calm down. I only managed to calm down after writing a few words. Oh, Shi Xingyun smiled. I wish you success. Jiao Junchen laughed. Thank you for your blessings. He then walked toward the hidden dragon pot. On the other side, Zhu Yi also bowed to Lin Feng. Master, I will go now. After glancing at Jiao Junchen in the distance, Lin Feng said to Zhu Yi, this person is a strong opponent, but you will benefit a lot from fighting him. You must deal with him carefully. After a short pause, Lin Feng said slowly, when fighting him, spells are only a side branch. The key is the general direction of the ancient Confucian Taoist techniques. You can try to figure it out carefully and verify it with your own thoughts. Zhu Yi's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, thank you for your advice, Master. I know what to do. When the spectators saw Jiao Junchen and Zhu Yi walking toward the hidden dragon pot, they all became alert. The 4 matches before the 3rd round of the competition were all exciting. Now that it was the most anticipated match, the crowd was excited. The cultivators who could enter the top 8 were indeed not easy to deal with. Each of them had their own unique skills. The match between Zhu Yi and Jiao Junchen was regarded as the final that would begin in advance. Even the primordial spirit realm experts were very concerned about this battle. Dao Master Zhuge Guang used his mana to send a voice transmission to Dao Master Chang'e. He asked, who do you think will win between these 2 little nerds? The 2 of them are not bookworms. Dao Master Chang'e smiled. Jiao Junchen does not need to say more. He has already integrated the Confucian scriptures and the truth of heaven and earth. He has cultivated the awe-inspiring righteousness, and has accumulated enough strength to achieve enlightenment. Even that Zhu Yi, although he cultivates in the mysterious Gate Heavenly Sect, there is a faint aura of literature above his head. However, it is not like Jiao Junshin's, which soars into the 9 heavens, but condenses in his body and does not dissipate. Dao Master Chang'e glanced at Zhu Yi and said softly, "He is actually in a stage of recuperation and accumulation. Once it is released, it will be amazing. I have a hunch that if Zhu Yi can defeat Jiao Junshin in this battle, it may be the time for him to release his accumulated strength." Zhuge Guang smiled. "The question is, can he win?" Dao Master Chang'e also smiled. "Let's say it is 60 to 40. Jiao Junshin has about a 60% chance of winning, but it is not impossible for Zhu Yi." The smile on his face faded a little. In all fairness, the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are indeed monstrous. If Zhu Yi is at the middle stage of the golden elixir, then the battle between him and Jiao Junshin, I estimate that the outcome will be reversed. Zhu Yi has a 60% chance of winning and Jiao Junshin only has a 40% chance. Zhuge Guang's eyes contained many things that were difficult to understand. The disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are all amazing, but the others don't matter. The key is Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao. The strong rise of these two will have an impact on the situation that is too hard to predict. Dao Master Chang'e did not say anything after hearing this, but his face revealed a look of deep thought. One was the direct descendant of the Shi family of the Great Qin dynasty. The other was the son of the Great Zhou dynasty's grand preceptor, the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Honggu. Although the two had a falling out with their respective families, things like blood relations are sometimes hard to say. While the two primordial spirit big shots were talking, Zhu Yi had already arrived next to the hidden dragon pot and jumped in. Inside the pot, Jiao Junshin was leisurely sitting on the grass, looking at Zhu Yi with a smile. Seeing Zhu Yi enter the hidden dragon pot, Jiao Junshin rubbed his palm. White mist surged, suddenly forming musical instruments that floated in the air. There was a bell, a pan, a qin, a se, a pipe, a sheng, a shao, a zither, a drum, a zither, and other instruments that played a beautiful piece of music together. Within the mist, there were faintly white clouds that transformed into birds, beasts, dragons, and phoenixes that danced lightly. It's rare to find a like-minded person. Jiao Junshin sat upright on the ground, singing an ancient poem that merged with the music and dance. Poetry, music, and dance in one, forming a grand and powerful dance that seemed to be welcoming the arrival of Zhu Yi. Seeing Jiao Junshin like this, Zhu Yi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. "Great Xiao. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.